All right. Thank you so much for coming. We are just going to start. Before we start, there are some few laid down protocols. We'll be giving the candidates 5 minutes to introduce yourself. So 2.5 minutes for the president, and then the vice president, the same thing. Once you are done, the vice president will go and sit down. Then the president will be at the podium. Then we ask the questions. As a committee, we have reviewed the questions. So we have 5 questions for you. Then the audience in person and online will also have 5 questions for you. And each question is 2 minutes. Am I right? 2 minutes. Responses. Perfect. So these are the laid down protocols before we start. Any other issue? I'll come to you. Thank you. So we can start. Hello. And once you are also responding to the questions, you can always look at your back to see the number of minutes left for you. It helps. Yesterday, a lot of people were, they were not actually following the hand.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is called Barima Akwasi Amankwaah. I am a student from the Community Research and Action, a PhD student, a second year. Thank you.
Also mention the position you're standing.
I am standing for the presidency for the GSO, and I'm here to present myself as a candidate to all of you online and those in person, that I come here standing before you, that as a person, as a student, I wish that
Based on the nuance and they getting also. Yes, see also the in person and online.
You're all in. You're all in.
You can share.
I come present myself as a candidate because I believe strongly I'm competent, I'm capable, I'm knowledgeable, and that is why I present myself as a candidate. Having been part of the GSO for some time, I've come to understand the dynamics within the GSO organization. I've come to understand the challenges that we are facing as a GSO, and I believe strongly I'm a candidate that is poised to bring change, that is poised to bring the difference that we want to see, the respect that we want to earn as a graduate student organization. And that is the most important reason why I present myself, and I want to do that. I'm partnering with my colleague because we share the same vision, the same aspiration, and that's why we are coming together as a team, because we aligned, we shared, and we believe that we'll be able to do what is expected of us as graduate student organization and ensure that we project what we need to do and then make ourselves stronger within the organization. Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure we get everyone so that we can see them. So
if you could
just step back the other way.
I think it's okay now. Akwasi, go back, come to where you were. We want the cameras to capture everybody so that those online can see. This is an opportunity to sell yourself because people are online. So if they cannot see you, how will they be able to know that you are a candidate? So that is why we are doing this.
On the big screen so that everyone can see where you all are. And I think that you'll all be able to adjust much better if we can see kind of how you look on the screen.
And this is okay.
Yeah. It's okay. Let's move to.
Oh, yeah, cool. We could do something. I mean, they can see it. Then each candidacy, like a president and vice president, come on board, introduce yourself, they go back. We have another thing. So it makes it easier for people to see.
Yeah.
So Akwasi, you can stand there. Good. And if it can go back a little bit. Good. Good.
Okay.
So you have to have it. Right.
Okay, thank you for being here tonight on a Friday night. My name is Jordan Traut-Jellad. I am a second-year PhD student in English. I study Indigenous feminisms and women's material culture. I am also currently the Graduate English Organization's president. I teach 2 sections of Writing 111, and I am the editor of a peer-reviewed academic journal here on campus, sponsored through our digital commons in the library. We've been having many conversations today and throughout the last few weeks to talk about what we see, what we envision for the GSO moving forward, and maybe some of our strengths right now, maybe some of our weaknesses. And I think over the course of our conversation, what's really been coming out to me is this idea of running on a ticket about building back trust, both with the graduate students, the graduate student community, but also with university leadership, as well as with the city of Binghamton. We talk about how we are a proud R1 research institution. Often that is built on the backs and the labor of our graduate students, our GAs, our TAs, all of the research that we do, the way we represent the university at conferences and symposiums, both in the US and across the world. Also about accessibility. We need more accessibility. This is in our strategic mission at the university. This is throughout our guidelines on GSO specifically, about sustainability and when I say sustainability, I mean sustainability in the sense that what we implement next year should be accessible to future GSOs. We should be working smarter, not harder, not constantly building new tools, but building off of the tools that provide a good foundation, and transparent communication so that we are making sure that there's equal opportunity and accessibility for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. You can go and sit down. The next candidate. All of you, the 2 of you can just come and start. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Hello, everyone. First off, I want to thank the audience for being here, the judges, the e-board too. Thank you, everyone, for spending your time here. I really appreciate it, especially for all your questions I can provide. My name's Ted Fulton. I'm a master's in public administration student in CCPA and within DPAP. So I want to quickly talk about myself real quick, but then I want to go more into my actual campaign platforms because talking about yourself is a little boring, obviously. I'm currently the GSO treasurer for the MPA GSO. I was the parliamentarian this year in SA Congress, which is good because the president chairs the SA or the Senate, the GSO Senate, and uses Robert's rules. So I'm familiar with that. I'm also pretty active. I'm in Phi Alpha Delta. What is it? So now I'm just going to kind of get into my main kind of talking points that me and Rachel have kind of been talking about, what the problems we kind of see with the GSO. We kind of see 2. 1, accessibility and like advertising, because a lot of people don't know what the GSO is. And there's also a lot of younger graduate students now who aren't aware of it. And obviously, it really does matter with stuff like the student activity fee being talked about. Clearly, more people need to know what the GSO is. And also, a lot of people in the GSO have been talking about their wanting to expand and getting more people involved. So we can do that through advertising, through being more vocal online, maybe more newsletters, polling more students to get their concerns, using the newsletter to poll them too. Also, another big concern is the budget, which was talked about yesterday. There's currently $700,000 in reserves, and then I think the budget's like $400,000. And obviously that's a lot of money and you're not going to be able to use all that, but there's certain simple things that need to be addressed. Like someone yesterday was talking about the fact that only 75% of their money is reimbursed for going to conferences and stuff. Maybe we can make that 100%. We can use money for scholarships. Grad school is pretty expensive. Maybe use it for more networking events, more events on campus. The GSO does have events, but not a lot of them are on Binghamton. Some of them are going to the city. We want more networking, coffee events. So yeah. So yeah, coffee events, networking events, and then yeah, we just want to utilize the budget better. I kind of droned off a little bit, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. There we go. Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel. I am an MBA candidate through the School of Management. My undergraduate degree is here from Binghamton in philosophy, politics, and law. And I'm a fresh candidate in the GSO. And I represent some of the younger 4+1 students who Binghamton is currently profiting off of. The MBA and MPA 4+1 programs are one of the highly coveted programs that Binghamton is pushing currently out towards its students right now, and they need representation on campus, as well as the current graduate students who are also represented on campus. We want to expand our reach to the campus so that every graduate student is represented. There are over 4,000 graduates at Binghamton University, and we want to ensure that every single member is represented under the GSO and through the Chartering Commission and the Constitution bylaws and the E&L committee. My goal through being the vice president is being the voice for students where students feel like they have none. I want to ensure that students are aware of the bylaws and the Constitution, and I want to make sure that every single student is able to make amendments, even if they don't have the vocabulary or if they don't understand the specific intricacies of the Constitution. I want to ensure that they have a voice. I want to open up Google Forms so that they're able to voice their concern regardless of whether or not they actually want to go through with amendments. Binghamton University, especially the graduate students, need to be able to voice their concerns, and they need to be able to be represented regardless of whether or not they understand the graduate student organization's implementation and true focus on campus, especially with the activity fees. If we're charging students for our presence on campus, we need to make sure that every single penny is worthwhile, is worth their money, is worth their time, and we want to make sure that the reserves as well as the current budgets are being utilized. Currently, we have 51 events that were hosted by the GSO this semester. This is counting the fall of 2025 and 2026, 51 events, and that's incredible. And we want to push that. We want to push for every single subgroup and departmental organization to host at least one event every semester. That way, students are able to go out and meet the community that they are a part of on Binghamton's campus. And we want to make sure that students are being able to be seen across departments. We want to, we want to make sure that students are able to see their elected representatives. We want to make sure that the constituents feel heard. Ted and I are proposing to host our office hours in the GSO lounge and go to every single building so that the constituents are heard.
Thank you. Thank you. The next candidate. So you have 5 minutes to do this.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone present here, and even for those watching online via Zoom. I am Akshay Shivayogi Shirol. I am a first-year grad student at computer science, and I am participating for the president election here at GSO. And the reason behind this is that I have been during my undergrad studies, I was also elected as vice president for an academic year, wherein I hosted many events and made sure that every student from, like, no matter what background they're from and where they're from, feel inclusive in the campus, feel safe, and have the best time while they're in there, as a student in the campus. So I want to continue that the same thing, as well as there are many issues graduate students face here. I want to address them and come to a real world executable solution. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm Haley. I'm a current PharmD candidate at the School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. Some of you may not have heard of us. We're actually over in Johnson City on a separate campus. And this is really what inspired me to get more involved with the GSO. I didn't go to undergrad here. I came here last year as a graduate student, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know where to go or who to ask. And I found the GSO through the newsletter, and I said, well, I guess I'll get involved. I guess that's where I belong. I'm a graduate student. But I found that really there was no representation for my school within the GSO, and for other schools as well. CCPA, for example, very limited representation last year. And I just felt that wasn't right and it wasn't fair. So I actually became very active on the GSO last year. I was on the elections committee last year, actually. I worked with Demi and with Em as well. And I learned a lot about the GSO, and I was able to see maybe where we could improve and where we could push people to be more involved. I'm also on the graduate council. I work with faculty and students from all the graduate schools as well as the dean. And that gave me a lot of, responsibility and experience working with other people and finding where we need to have more action and where we can come together. So I really want to apply those things as the vice president and get people more involved. I helped create the senator position that I now hold within the School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. So basically, I attend GSO Senate meetings, and I go back to our student government, and I tell them this is what's happening with the GSO, this is what's happening with other schools, and essentially, it just ends there. There is no framework for collaboration or any sort of feedback between my school and the GSO and the university at large. And I suspect it's similar in other schools as well, especially ones that aren't on the main campus. So that is really the core of my campaign and why I've teamed up with Akshay, because he's from Watson and he actually came to pharmacy the other day. We made a couple announcements, we talked to some people, and he's leaving and he looked at me and he said, I've never seen any of these people before. So that's our campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The last candidate.
Sounds good. Hi, good evening, everyone. To whoever come to in person and also who are watching online, good evening, everyone. My name is Loon Nuam, and I'm a first-year student at the School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, and I'm a PharmD candidate. It's so good to see all of my candidates and everyone, the Yakubu, and then, Prabhu. Yeah, and to introduce about myself a little, I did 2+4 in Binghamton. So my story is abroad to tell because I was orientation advisor. I was a summer staff. I was with the Rest Light for See You Later crew, Welcome crew, and I was everywhere in the campus. And I was intern at CCE, we call Center for Service Engagement. And then I was a student member at Harper College Council, which we decide about the curriculum and everything. I was an innovation scholar and I was a provost scholar. And then now here I am. I'm at the pharmacy school right now. And at the pharmacy school, I'm a class president for the class of 2029. And also at the same time, I'm a graduate assistant at late night. So you will see me that I have been spreading myself around the campus from the pharmacy school to the main campus. What I found now is that why people don't know much about GSO. Why? That's come out when I applied for my candidate position, like for the GSO president. Why they still don't know? How can we advocate that GSO can do a lot more for them? How can we let them know more? So how can we let them know the newsletter efficiently? That's came out in my mind. Because every time, whenever GSO sends the newsletter, people will be like, oh, they'll just ignore it, or they'll just, oh, there's another newsletter. But how can we do that? Is the question. And then for that answer, me and Aleah decided that what if we do monthly survey that we literally focus and invest on their mental, physical health, because being in grad school is not easy at all. I want to advocate for that. And the second is that thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nuam-Shron. I'm a 4+1 student in electrical engineering. And continuing on what Lynn was saying, we also wanted to do more like collaboration-based orgs groups, maybe like research days. We wanted to connect all the different like 27 GSO departments to combine together where we can have those type of events together so we can be more engaging. We also want GSO to be more accessible so other people can know, so maybe more outreach programs, maybe like tabling or flyer work, such like that, as well as getting more engagement with the GSO org. We also want GSO to be a really strong collaborative team as well. We want that to bring everyone together to do that, because if we can be really strong as a team, we can do much more for the graduate students. Some things that I also want to do is like complex processes such as like chartering. I want that to make it more simpler for new orgs that want to join the group. And so I would make like step-by-step guidance for that. I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we know our candidate. You can have a seat, please. Now, I want our judges to use less than 1 minute to introduce themselves. Then we start the question section. Okay. Your name, and then the year.
Hi, my name is Jaylene Pache. I am in TCPA, Master's in Human Rights, and I am first year.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruth Owuswe Champon, and I'm a second-year master's student in biomedical engineering.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Billy Gary. I'm in the MAT program, social studies.
Take some money from.
I'm also the senator for GSO.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Harsh Korekar, and I am a second-year grad student. I'm completing my master's in computer science.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Demi. I am a PhD student in industrial and systems engineering. I'm a member of the GSO elections committee for this year. I was the former electoral chair for previous years, and it's nice to be here.
Thank you. We have one judge who just left the place. Okay.
Hi, my name is Miriam Iftihar. I'm a first-year Genocide and Mass Atrocity Prevention Master's student and also on the GSO Senate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Now, we want all the presidential nominees to be up here. Unfortunately, you can't sit down. Somebody was suggesting if they can line up some chairs and then they sit down. If you sit down, I'm not sure our cameras can capture you. Yes. If they sit down, can the cameras capture them? Okay. So. Okay. So please do that. Yes. Please do that. First, second, third, and then the fourth in that order. All right. Now we have 5 questions, and then after these questions, we'll now move to the in-person people and then those online.
Yep. We have it in this order: Barima, Theo, Akshay, and Lun.
That's how they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Lun is in the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, I already said they should stand accordingly. Good. Are you ready? Can you project the questions? All right. Thank you. So you can always refer to the questions that is being projected here. And then also you have 2 minutes. When the time elapses, please, we'll just move to the next candidate. Thank you. So my first question is under leadership and accountability. The GSO president serves as the chief executive of the organization. If graduate students feel the GSO is not effectively representing their concerns, how will you rebuild trust and demonstrate accountability?
Thank you very much. I think the first thing that we need to be doing as a committee is to look at communication. Communication is very essential, that everybody needs to understand what we are doing and what we intend to do. Another thing that I intend to do is that I want us to, as executives, committee, as Senate members, we need to participate in a retreat where everybody brings the idea, we build consensus together, then everybody understand that this is what we are going to do. Because people need to understand that the monies that they are paying is going to be used for something worth it. So if people participate in the retreat, understand all the programs that we are going to do, then they'll be able to disseminate information to their representative or their student bodies. Then in that vein, everybody will know that what I'm paying for is worth it. So that is another thing. Another thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to ensure that we need to improve upon what we call communication, and that I will suggest that we get what we call a communication person that will be able to disseminate the information, because most of the time the information that comes out doesn't really go to the bottom the way it is communicated. But if you get somebody that is going to ensure that the information is really coded, it's really all the the needed artwork and everything that needs to be done is done properly and disseminated to people, then people will know that, yes, this is coming for me. When people understand and they know that they are part of it, participating is going to be very easy for them. But what I see is that because people doesn't know, they find that they are being disenfranchised or they are not being considered. And I think that is something that we need to do. The bottom line, communication, togetherness, and then be able to move the activities of GSO forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all that. I think we need to take a multifaceted approach. First thing is we need to be more accessible to students. Rachel and I were talking about how maybe we could not just have just office hours in the bottom of the library. I don't know if any of you guys have been down there, but it is a maze. It is hard to get around there. So I think maybe we could use the grad student lounge. Just having our face out more means more students are going to come to us. I also want to use the newsletter. Maybe we can get some surveys in there. I mean, obviously, I think it was mentioned previously, maybe do something about mental health surveys, but just general concerns too. We could take those because we need to actually start listening to what students are saying, and we're just not communicating with them enough. And then also I want to create a advertising maybe committee, or just some sort of someone who's actually specific, like job will be, I mean, I know it already exists, but maybe more people behind advertising and getting the GSO being known about it, because how can people talk about their concerns with the GSO if they don't know what the GSO is? We need more people to recognize who we are so we can take their concerns and then we can actually address them. So basically accessibility and transparency. That's pretty much it. So.
So as previously mentioned, is that if students are not aware of what GSO is, then they pretty much are not they do not participating in most of the events that GSO organizes. So, and to overlook that the GSO is doing its work properly and is running liquid smooth, is e-board has some particular positions who look after some certain who are responsible looking over some certain things and make sure that they run properly. To make that more executable is, as far as I know, the meetings go on Zoom, which is virtual. So the best thing would be in-person meetings so that the members are actively participating in it. And also to get even more student involvement is we'll be having student intakes on every fall and spring semesters. And fall we have the most number of student incoming. So we have to make sure like we introduce ourselves during the orientation period so that they know what GSO is and we can effectively use the budget and all the resources we have and make their life and have a good time here at campus. Thank you.
Okay, we have a great answer already. For me, I would want to add that what if we do tabling instead of the office hour, tabling to like around the different school. We have 6 school. So what about we did tabling like this week, say we're gonna do it School of Management, and we hear about our graduate student voices. And then next week, what are we gonna do at School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences? And then the next week, what do we do at Watson College? And the next week, what do we do at the college, the CCPA? And then what if we do at Decker? So we have 6 different schools. What if we do like routinely do it? And then based on that, after we finish the tabling, what if we send out survey on the newsletter attached so that their voice will be like more persistent and then we could hear their voice more first. And then the second thing is that what if we put more empathy and sympathy when we like hear for their voices? Because yeah, we want to hear their voices, but if we didn't put empathy and if we didn't put servant leadership when we lead the team, how are we going to lead the team? And we have like over 4,000 of graduate students. And then we have 27 different departments for GSO subgroup. So without servant leadership, it's impossible. And then last but not least, communication, transparency between each leadership team. It's the most important and the core value of all. That's my answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have some rebuttal you want to make, let me know so that, okay, 1 minute each.
I think one thing that I also say is the element of ownership. GSO is owned by all graduate students. It's not a selected few. So for us to build ownership, what we need to do is that when new students are coming, the level of orientation that we are going to organize is supposed to be so deep in such a way that they will understand that they are not going to pass through the institution, but rather the institution should rather pass through them. So when that one is done, when you are calling for them to participate in activities and whatever it is, they are going to come and they are going to participate fully. And also, we need to ensure that periodically we do what we call rotational meetings. This month, if you are having the meeting in, let's say, CCPA, the following month we can have it in pharmacy. We can do that for the other schools to also feel our presence. And when they do that, then they know that we are part of them and they are also part of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. So are they using the 1 minute to provide rebuttal?
Yes, 1 minute.
They also use the 1 minute to finish their points if
Just for rebuttal.
just for rebuttal.
Yes, rebuttal. So our next question is on. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Our next question is appointment and leadership selection. The president nominates students to executive. The president nominates students to executive board positions. What criteria, as president, will you use when appointing individuals to these roles, and how will you prevent favoritism or bias in the process? The question is also up there.
So I think the first thing I would do, there's 27 sub-organizations in the GSO, and obviously we want to represent those people, especially if we're appointing them. And obviously, I don't really want to have any bias or whatsoever. I'm from CCPA, but obviously I'm not going to just elect CCPA people. And this is also a big reason why want to be big on advertising, because we need to advertise that these positions are open so we can get as many candidates as possible. I think that's honestly what's going to reduce bias, getting as many people as possible to a point. Then we'll have a pool. And maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll have a casual committee with other people to help appoint the position. So maybe it's not just me helping it. I mean, it will be me obviously appointing the person, having the final say, but I want to have other people's inputs. I just want to have as many people as possible. I think that's the real way to reduce bias.
So the best way to nominate the e-board members would be like to talk to them, like not an interview, a casual talk with as a friendly and really communicable, like open communication where they can freely talk to you about themselves, everything, so that you can understand them fully. And regarding the avoiding favoritism in appointing the e-board is maintaining a professional and a personal distance between the individual you're interviewing or communicating with. So I am a TA for one of the subjects and I know many students personally, but still it is my duty to, when it comes to my personal professional career as a TA here, I should not give them the privilege of getting more marks or looking them over stage than any other students whom I do not know personally. So maintaining a personal and professional border is a must, and that is how you nominate. Thank you.
For me, I would look into first, do you willingly to serve the the graduate student community right now? Are you willing? And the second, are you ready to sacrifice? Because there might be like some sacrifice that you need to make, because we're not just like doing the administrative or just doing the talk or whatever. We are going to take an action right now. So are you willingly to take an action now? And the second, what we have been practicing in School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences is that we have like IPE activity called Decker student and also the CCPA student. We have we have to be like collab together and then diagnosis a patient. We have worked together as a team. So I want to implement that model to the GSO team. I'll bring that model and then I will focus on the main purpose of GSO, which is how can we improve the graduate student community? What can we do? Not just our own purposes. After all, because it's important to look at the purpose and the vision and mission of the organization. If you cannot sacrifice some of your time, how are we going to like create a new community? Because the university is a growing community. So we need to grow. We want to go we want to expand the horizon. So do you want to grow with me? For the whole 4,000 students. Are you ready? That will be my big concern and my big question.
Thank you very much. I think ownership and participation are going to be very key to whatever we are going to do. First and foremost, I'm going to use the 3 C's approach. Competence. I think every school have their level of competence. 2, the capacity. And 3, their commitment. These are the 3 C's that we're going to use. Secondly, every school is going to nominate representatives. We have them, so we're going to make it evenly distributed. That we expect 3 from pharmacy, 4 from here, 3 from here. When we have them, you are going to decide that this is the committee that we're going to do, because we need to ensure that people are participating, people are taking full responsibility, full roles. And when they do that, one of the things that I'm going to do that is going to motivate people to do is that we need to recognize their role, their participation. At the end of the day, we can say that these people, this is the role, the contribution that they made. And we are also going to use what we call the SWOT approach. Everything we need to look at our strength. Where are our strengths? Where are our weaknesses? Where are the opportunities and the threats that are available to us? When you're able to assemble all these things, and when people are doing things,
we can periodically review our activities, review how we are doing, how we are going around our activities. When you're able to do that, people will see that, yes, now if I participate, somebody is going to watch me, somebody is going to monitor me, and that my participation needs to be efficient and effective. So when we're able to do this, we are going to help. And last of all, communication. Among the committees, there needs to be communication among us, one after the other. Every time we are communicating among us, we are collaborating among us. And if you're able to do that, everybody will feel valued, everybody will feel important, and then we'll see the bigger and the greater GSO we all expect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My next question is on advocacy with university administration. The president acts as a liaison between graduate students, faculty, and university administration. Can you describe how you will advocate for graduate student interests when administrators or even management disagree with student demands? I'm starting with you.
So the main role of the president would be the liaise between graduate student and the university administrations. So president makes sure that they hear the needs and the problems the graduate students are facing here and reach out to the particular administration in the university to solve and come to a real life executable solution to the problem. And which is pretty much I have done during my vice presidency. For an academic year during my undergrad. And coming to the second question would be, when there's a disagreement within the administrations, there will be a reason for it. Ask for it, communicate, and try to come to a conclusion. If not favorable to you or not to them, come in the middle point. And if you cannot ask them to fully or convince them to fully agree with you, there's always a middle point where you can solve the problems, and it's in favor of neither of you. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
So I'm a class president of class of 2029 right now. So I have those kind of situations where the faculty and the university administration don't agree on what the student demand and everything. But what I think at that point is that I am representing my class. I'm representing the demands. How can I meet the demand of my cohort with the demand of the faculty? How can I do that? How can we meet at the middle point? That's the first thing. And the second thing is that to approach them very professionally, to listen to feedback. There might be some reason from them that they cannot give you certain answer right away, Listen to them. And then based on that, because now we are presenting, or for me, as a class president right now. So I'm presenting for my class. And how can I get the demand that my class win? Me presenting my class, and then the faculty, they are giving their feedback. How can I meet in the middle point? How can I approach them? Professionally, I need to use my professionalism at that time. And also, if they cannot give us the answer that I want, how can I get alternative answer that could benefit my cohort, or that could benefit my graduate student? I will fight for it until I got the benefit for the graduate student. That's my plan. Thank you.
So I think there's kind of 2 points when it comes to this. One, it's being able to present grad student. Oh, wait, do it. Oh, is this for? Oh, no, I was just speaking. Oh, I didn't pass it.
No, is the main question now?
Main question, yeah.
Yeah, so is it,
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. When we talk about advocacy, there are some key issues that you need to look at. One is lobbying. 2 is looking at your allies within a group. I will make sure that when we are going with an issue, or we are going with something that we are going to lobby for, we are going to advocate for. We are going to get allies within the faculty that are going to align with us. 2, we are also going to communicate our demands. And what we need to understand is that most of the times when we are going for this kind of meeting, it is not our individual ideas or whatever that we are sharing with them. It's a consensus building. So we are going with a whole university graduate school students demands. So that is what we are going to take. Secondly, we are going to have a dialogue. These are position. Definitely there are going to be maybe some way out. We can all meet ourselves halfway. Also, we need, when there's lack of maybe reaching a consensus, I would definitely tell them that I need to go back to my committee, my executive, and discuss back with them because they sent me. And another thing that I will do is that I will propose that when I'm going for such meetings, I don't go alone. So it doesn't become solely my responsibility. But at least get representatives from other, committees, go with them so that they also understand what is being discussed there and the issues that are being discussed there. When we have all this and you come back to the executive committee or the Senate meeting and we're explaining to them, other people can also contribute. And then based on that, we can also form another consensus building and go back to them and then request for our demand. I believe with dialogue, there's a lot that can be done. The last resort, we will not talk about it now. Thank you.
First off, apologies for taking the mic too early. Oops. No, yeah. So basically, I think it's kind of 2 main points talking about this. 1, presenting concerns to these committees, and 2, finding a compromise that everyone likes. Because realistically, I mean, that's just how it kind of works. So 1, in terms of presenting graduate student concerns, we need to be able to get data and actual written statements from students to be able to provide the faculty. Because it's one thing if you're just saying something, but it's another thing if you provide a bunch of information saying this is what students like. The current GSO president, when it came to the Seduxo committee, actually did this and brought forward a bunch of student data. And that obviously helps when talking with them because then they can see something. It's all about being visual because it's one thing if you speak up, but it's another thing if you have stuff to back up what you're saying. And then the second part is obviously finding a compromise between what faculty want and what students want. At the end of the day, it might not be something perfect, but something's better than nothing. That's what I personally think. I'd rather get something done. I want to provide for students at the end of the day. And if we have to compromise a little bit, I think that's okay. Yeah.
Thank you. My next question is on risk management and organizational responsibility. The president must oversee matters such as liability and other forms of insurance within GSO. Why is risk management important for a student organization like GSO? And how will you ensure that GSO fulfill these responsibilities properly?
That is a really important question. And that is one thing that, all the GSO member and also all the grad students should know about that too. Right now, my work as a graduate student at late night, we have those kind of problem, like risk management and everything. I would say the most important thing that we need to take action is that communication. Because if we didn't communicate well enough to each other or to each member of the GSO, we cannot not even prevent, we cannot protect any forms of risks. Things can happen and then conflict will happen. We are leading a team, we are leading the whole 4,000 students. Things can happen, conflict will happen. So we have to come with a solution, but how can we come with that solution? How can we cover that kind of risks is the only thing we have to communicate well. And the second thing, we have to know that things have their own, every school and everyone have their weakness and their strength. So how can we understand those areas that we need to improve and how can we bring back and how can we cover it? So if we know and if we get those kind of concepts, this will be like helping us to grow the GSO as a team and as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Risk management is very important because it is what we call standard operating procedures. For us, for our operation, we need to understand that there are parameters, there are boundaries that we all need to understand. So if all of us, every year, we are supposed to participate in a training, and that is the first call, because to overcome risk management, you need to understand the details. You need to have knowledge. So I will ensure that all officers participate in these trainings. That is the first one. The second one is that we need to also cross the T's and dots before we undertake any activity. What are the risks? We need to do what we call risk management assessment. Assess the strengths, know that these are the things that we can do, these are the things that we cannot do, and communicate. Communicate, because liabilities comes with a cost. And we don't want to give a lot of liabilities or give any liability to what? The GSO. Therefore, when we are able to do all this and people understand it, then people will be responsible. They'll be very responsible with their actions, whatever they are doing. Next is that we need to also let people understand that in as much as they are responsible, they also have something that they need to do to make sure that we succeed. In human rights, we say people have their rights, but when you have your rights, you have what? A responsibility. So that is also another thing that we're going to do. And we also need to ensure that we are communicating. One of the backbone of GSO is that we need to ensure we are communicating, we are doing things effectively and efficiently. If you're able to do that communication, I bet you we will run through, we'll be successful, and people will applaud us. And people will even come and learn from what we are doing. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I think just in general, when students are having events, I think it's very important in making sure they understand kind of the risks that are kind of involved. I think we should definitely have some sort of maybe form or summarization just with this information. So anytime a student has an event, they can also be aware of this when they come forward. So they're not just coming to the GSO and then, you know, we just shoot them down completely. I think they should have kind of idea going in beforehand. I think it's important that we meet with students. I think that's pretty big. And then also, obviously, I agreed with the point with risk management trainings. I think that'd be kind of easy. Maybe just do like a day or something. It's just all comes down to understanding. Everyone needs to understand what's going on. So communicating with each other, summarizing, so people can understand what's going on, so we can just make the process a whole lot easier. So.
So we all are humans, and no matter where we are born or where we come from, our childhood, we have a very common childhood, and that is we have been told and encouraged to be curiosity. Ask why. Why and what is the risk? Assess it. Assess the risk. Find a solution and move towards it. Take the chance and think and assess what are the odds of winning over the risk. And that is how you solve it, I guess. Thank you.
All right, my last question to candidates: handling crisis or controversy on campus as a president. Suppose the graduate student community faces a major issue, such as funding cuts, labor concerns, or campus policy that harms graduate students. How will you lead the GSO response while maintaining constructive relationships with the administration?
Thank you very much. I think for every human institution, crisis is part of it. And when there's crisis, there's resolution. Crisis and resolution goes hand in hand. First and foremost, sometimes there are some demands that students might come with, but those demands might not be appropriate. The key word here is that they might not be appropriate and the timing might not be up. Therefore, as the president, I will ensure that at the Senate meeting, at the e-board meeting, we're able to discuss, we're able to talk about the issue, and we task our colleagues to also take it to their various schools, various organizations, because that is where the communication, that is where the discussions are formed. So they at that level also have to discuss with them, because if they are able to discuss with them at that level and everybody understand it, then we'll be able to make headway. So that is going to be one of the approaches that I'm going to do. And then we also need to also ensure that maybe when there are issues like that, we might call for an emergency meeting where we bring everybody on board, or call for a meeting where we bring everybody on board. Come, let's dialogue. Even if it's possible to bring maybe some faculty members, some administration members, for them to come and explain some of these details to the people, we'll be able to do that. Write to them, let them come, explain, talk to them, for us to build consensus, because that is what we need. All of us, we need that consensus, we need that agreement so that we can move the institution forward. It is not only about the interest of graduate student organization, but it's a collective interest. And that is what I'm going to ensure that we are doing. Collectively, if we all agree, collectively, if we all know that this is what is our target and we are working towards it, we'll be able to do it. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I think there's two sort of things for this. One, Irene was kind of talking about this. She's running for BU Council yesterday at the debate. Speaking up. When you're, president of the GSO, you have to go to a lot of different committees with faculty members and administration. So you're one of the most important people when it comes to being able to represent student interests. So what you need to do is speak up. So I will promise you that anytime I would be in any of those meetings, I would make sure to speak up, raise my hand, make sure to be a part of the conversation, because if you just kind of are there, then nothing's going to happen. Then also I want to, potentially have emergency meetings with sub-GSO organizations, maybe their e-boards or their president or something, just so we can come together as a graduate student community and kind of have a consensus and come together and then bring that forward to the faculty and staff as one. So.
As a president, I would be the major responsible person looking over the meetings and handling such situations. So when during the meeting, and if there's a proper communication in person during the meeting, then there would be no such issues related. And if there's any issue that arises, then we will come to a mutual understanding and mutual conclusion. And regarding the funding, then proper financial planning is plays a very crucial role during the start of the academic year itself. So when I take over the office in June 1st, this would be the first issue I would look over, that is proper financial management. And regarding the relationship management with administration, is you should never be like too harsh or too soft when speaking to a person. There should be a intermediate level wherein neither of you agrees or disagrees completely for any topic regarding, and there should be a common sense based mutual understanding that both of you agree to, and this would lead to a long term and long lasting healthy relationship. Thank you.
As a GSO president, when those things are coming out, what I will do first is I will hold a meeting right away with my team member, my committee member, and then also the sub-GSO committee with 27 department. The first thing. Second thing, I will send newsletter to the GSO member, the graduate student, and listen their feedback. I'll hear their voices first because their voice is important. And I will do the meeting again based on their voices with my whole leadership team, and then we'll come with a conclusion. And based on that conclusion, which is bringing the whole voices of the whole 4,000 students, I will represent that voices. I will raise my voice because that voice could represent. Okay, sorry. Okay, sounds good. So because that voice could represent the whole 4,000 student community. So I'll raise my voice to the administrator, and also to the faculty member, and until we get a reasonable solution to benefit for the students. Thank you.
If you have any rebuttal, okay. Any rebuttal again?
I think if you look at the data, we have graduate students constituting about 40% of the university population. And I think it's time the administration value the inputs that the graduate students are bringing on board. Therefore, one of the things that I'm proposing that we need to do is that we need to advocate that we have representatives, graduate representatives, maybe one for PhD, one for masters, and one for +1 or so. At least it is not going to bring any cost to the university, but it's going to increase the representation of the student body. Therefore, when the issues are being discussed, yes, students will feel that we are also being represented, because we need the numbers at those meetings for them to know that, yes, we are also there. Yesterday, when Irene was speaking, I pity her, but I think we need more representation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates. Now we are going to take 5 questions, 3 here and 2 online. Make sure your questions are very brief, and nobody is supposed to ask more than 1 question. So stream your questions to 1 question each, not more than 1.
They are the president, and the representative of GSO, and they want to lead all of us, give us opportunity to ask them serious questions. Not just limit on.
Yes, we are also looking at the vice president. We still have 4 people standing.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys agree, but these guys are going to be the face of GSO. So.
All right, not more than 2 questions. This one, I'm not going again.
Okay, thank God. Yakubu. So my name is Victoria. I represent Political Science Department, OASIS, as a club for queer grad students, and also I represent GSU, the labor union here. Oh, I think I can have 2 questions, and they will be maybe for both VPs and presidents, because, yeah, I'm trying to be nice. So, I'm not always nice. So the problem that I see among all of the candidates is that you treat this as a club, and it's not the club. How will you actually, not like communication, events and all of that. Also, I feel like when you're talking about lack of communication, you're kind of throwing like stones into Am's garden a little bit. The problem is engagement, not communication. So what are the steps that you will take to address the concerns that students have, financial and housing? It's not about events only. That's the first question. And the second question, I think there is a lack of understanding of how things works. I think, wait, I'm sorry for taking time. I have notes. You talk a lot about collaboration and events, but not addressing the main points, like housing, financial struggles, and all of that. I mentioned about it. We have 4,000 people who are grad students. 920 of those are employees of the state, and 300 of those are employees of private RA unions. So I don't see anything that you mentioned about. Yakubu asked the great last question about how you can actually go to the president, to the office, to the HR, and deal with the concerns. And none of you answered this question. You all were, yeah, we're going to collaborate, communicate, and all kumbaya. What are the strategic steps that you will take to actually address those questions? Because administration will not give funding. There is a thing that 5 years, I'm sorry, Yakubu, taking time. You hate me, I know. But there are issues, very big issue on the student level right now, that a lot of students who are on their 5th year of PhD program are forced to graduate. There is no funding. There is nothing else. And some of them in some departments are not even done with their prospectus. So if they're not done with the prospectus by the end of the 5th year, they will be kicked out. It's a student policy issue. It's not an employment issue. So how can you address this? What I've heard right now is just communication, but no concrete steps. Sorry if I'm too hard on you.
Thank you. I'm starting from you.
So, sorry. At the same time, that's kind of what I was trying to do. So yeah, I think honestly, what I personally feel like is the administration, like obviously we're going to try to do everything we can to change how they feel, but I think at the end of the day, it's very hard to push the administration a certain way. That doesn't mean we're not going to try, but I also think the GSO needs to do things themselves too. I think we have such a large reserves in our budget that maybe we can provide stipends or small little cushions for people so they can deal with issues like, you know, housing or the cost of living, or just for general academic costs. Like we might be able to offset a little bit. So I think we should do anything in our immediate power to do something and then work with the administration. But at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to work with them. And then for advertising and kind of engagement, they are separate, but I think that they're very directly related personally. Not a lot of people know what the GSO is, and that is a big part of why there's an engagement, because they don't know about it. So I think actually advertising is going to help people get more engaged. Obviously, we need to do more than just put posters around. Obviously, we need to talk to students and engage with them more so they can engage with us. But a big part of that is getting our face out there. That's what I personally think, at least. So, yeah.
Okay, answering your first question of how would we understand problems the students are facing is direct outreach. We can use the technology such as the Google Forms to, take individual response from each and every student, and we also conduct structured office hours wherein if they want to come and meet us in person personally and without any third person looking at our Google Form response, even that is a way. And regarding solving the state employment issues is we can just try, like, as we are GSO members, we are the president, voices of the graduate students. We have some power to talk with the responsibilities. The responsive people at university administration level. We can just talk and we can try to fix the solution, but at the end of the day, like as he told, it may be or it may not be a solution because we are solve this problem. But the employment comes under the labor category, which my VP will look after. But as a president, you and I will be like actively participating in addressing the issue. But we cannot guarantee if we can solve the solution. Thank you.
And they said you can't guarantee, but what can you
do? Depending on what the problem is, we cannot. There's no generalized answer. We need to know the proper history or whatever the problem is. What is it? How is it facing? Why is it happening? Based on that, we can make some strategic moves. Yeah.
As a GSO president for the housing problem. So as soon as I get into the office, as soon as I get that position, during the fall, what I'm going to do is that for the housing, I will reach out to our new president and then with my whole leadership team, and then we're going to have a meeting. And also I will try to get our Senator Aleah, which is also our alumni, and we will discuss about how we could make housing more affordable and how we could fix more better living system for the graduate student. That's the first thing that I would do. And also in that fall semester, what I'm going to do is that I will do the networking event, not just the superficial networking event for 6 different schools for the graduate student, which will include it about research showcases, like how go with freshman center and get the idea from them and bring our new president and my whole leadership team that how we could create more employment opportunity by collaborating the pharmacy school and Watson together. And how could we curate more career opportunities so that the graduate student will get some funding? I will create those kind of employment opportunity and then bring a solution for the housing problem. Thank you for the question, Victoria.
Thank you very much for your questioning. I think as the GSO president, I'm just the figurehead. The responsibility is on all of us as committee, Senate members, and Executive Committee Board. First, I think one of the things that perhaps you have not taken a lot of keen interest is that we, in the GSO constitution, they have what we call the Labor and Employment Committee. How do we assess the data with them? How do we analyze the data with them to understand the employment opportunities available on campus? There are a lot of lecturership positions that have been advertised on campus, but if you are not on the mailing list, you are not going to get it. And here's the case: if you're able to liaise well with the various schools, the various departments, and ensure that at least before the semester begins, we know all the opportunities that are available. We talk with Sedesco, just that maybe by the 1st June, their contract is going to end. The new organizations that are going to come, what are the employment opportunities that are available, that people can have hands on it. If people have hands on it, even if their funding has ended, with the work that they are doing, they'll be able to do something and still continue with wherever they are. So I believe strongly we need to work with the data that is going to be available to us. My colleague Vice will talk, if elected, will talk also about the collaboration with the Broome County and the Binghamton City, because we live in a community and we can foster a lot of relationship with them. Create that relationship that if there is an employment opportunity, summer programs, winter programs, they can liaise with us, they can connect us, and then our members will be able to participate and get something at the end of the year, and they'll be able to also use it to pay for their bills and other things. So collaboration with outside institution and internal institution is going to be one of the strongest things that we are going to advocate and do. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Firstly, I would like to answer the question she asked. The few steps that the graduate council or the SUNY student leader organization has taken is, let's assume there were students from literature school who were having a GATA pay comparatively less from Watson students. So we made sure that from this spring, every graduate student who is a GATA has the same pay. Second thing that GSO is trying to push is there is a good eviction law which needs to be pushed by the municipality or the upstate laws, which states that even if someone increases the rent more than 10%, then he needs to give reason for it. So any graduate students who is paying rent outside university, they need to be into a fixed amount. So any renter could not increase the rent. We are working with Westall to push that law. And coming back to my question is, this is a scenario which took place with the last e-book. So because a lot of candidates were only from one school, Watson School, so we appointed an executive position for the assistant to the president to make sure that there is someone who is from other school, like from management or from pharmacy. So prioritizing those students only. So do you think it's a good approach? Even though we got candidates from all across 6 schools, we prioritize that we go with pharmacy or management schools and giving them a priority for the diversity purpose. That's my first question. And second question is, let's assume, it's a hypothetical question, let's assume there is a tension between your executive board making a decision and you have to come to one decision. How could you make sure that both of this student leaders feel recognized, and how could you boil down to one decision and make sure they feel recognized and accountable? My second question is, let's assume you have to come down to one decision and there is a contrast of opinions between two student leaders and there's tension between them. So how could you lead and make sure that you get the right decision forward and also make them feel recognized between the
All right, thank you. I'm starting with you.
The first question was if this new initiative of making the candidates like president and vice president from different school was a really very good initiative, to be honest. And this would also make sure, like, till now only one school was dominating, or where the representatives of the GSO board, we all know that, but this time is different.
Again, was the last e-board because all the candidates from Watson School got appointed positions like assistant to the president. We make sure that we do not appoint student leaders from Watson School. We prioritize other school leaders. This is nothing about this year, about the previous year. So, what are your opinions? Should this be done? Should we only prioritize students from other schools and not give the students opportunity? What are your opinions about this decision which was made?
Like in summary, it's trying to ask, like, should we balance capacity, ability, or should we go with diversity? What they did then was President VPMA was from Watson. So they made an internal rule like, hey, let's pick assistant to the president and treasurer from other schools to balance diversity. But we have other students, from Watson also applying. So should we focus on diversity or should we be looking at ability? Does that make sense?
When it comes to the three positions that are chosen by election and debate, the president, vice president, and the MVPA. These should be diverse, and I completely agree with it. And when coming to other roles such as the president, assistant to the president, and treasurer, and those which are selected based, they should be like there shouldn't be any limitation or where only the students from these schools can apply, because those are the matters of skills rather than what school they come from. And coming to your second question is, how would you address or come to the common conclusion is, as I told previously, having a good team, good members within your e-board committee and having a good relationship with them will always result in, or most probably result in, a positive solution. And there would be very less conflicts which may happen. And even if they happen, it would be very easy to solve because you are a team and you're doing good with it.
So for the first question, what I would like to point out is that it's important that we bring diversity, equity, and inclusion in our student community. And also, we shouldn't leave the ability to, because the ability will lead all the over 4,000 graduate students. So we shouldn't leave that too. It will be the crucial important. It will be the crucial quality. It have to be the crucial value. But when the time comes that we have to decide between the ability and the inclusion, I would say, can we go and then decide for the balance? If we can balance, if we can get balance, we shouldn't get any bias. We shouldn't give any bias based on the balance. How can we make equilibrium? I would focus on that. And the second question, when we have is it conflict between the two different student leadership? I would say I will reach out to them separately first and giving to them constructive criticism. And then I will approach them that, hey, how we can get better. Just tell me honestly. because I am your president. So tell me honest, how we can approach, how we can do better. Tell me. I will hear their voice first, and then based on it, because I know both of the situation already, based on what they respond me, I'll give my feedback, which have to be unbiased. We cannot do bias because you are leading the whole over 4,000 students. That would be the core value for that. Thank you so much for that question.
Thank you very much for your question. I would say diversity in itself is not bad. If that is what is going to bring out participation, going to bring out competence, I don't see anything wrong with it. If, for instance, I'm elected, I don't see why I should, for instance, take somebody from, let's say, CRA to be my assistant. No way. I'm going to get somebody from another department or unit to be. So diversity is very important. Secondly, we have what we call positive bias. Positive bias, when it is acted, it is geared towards eliminating something. So if that positive bias is going to help us achieve inclusiveness among us, then I think I'm good for it. We can go for that, and then everybody will feel part of it. Because the most important thing is feeling part of it. And third one is the opportunity. The opportunity given to everybody, given to specific people is very critical. And opportunities most of the times comes with ability. Is the person able to do it? If he's able to do it, because even if you are the president and you appoint somebody, you don't know even the person's competence or capacity, but you reason, you aspire that the person will be able to do it. That's why you are giving. So that same opportunity should be given to a new person, and then the person will be able to act. On the issue of when there is a misunderstanding or crisis, I think for any democratic world, it will happen. It will okay. But you need to dialogue. You need to negotiate. And then at the end of the day, when there is a consensus, people will greet themselves, and then they will say that we took the right decision. So allow that debate, allow that agreement and disagreement, and let people argue out their points. And at the end of the day, let the general body agrees, and then we move forward. Thank you.
I would say I definitely support diversity. The GSO is at a big turning point right now. We could either A, go down the current path we're going, where we have a bunch of involvement, but it's not every single school, or B, realize that there's more SOM students, more CCPA students, more pharmacy students that are coming here, and realize that, maybe we do need to emphasize them a little bit, at least in the beginning. Obviously, 5 years from now, when they're more regularly a part of the GSO, that's different. But I think for right now, it's important, because all of us here have been talking about engagement. And the only way we're going to get engagement is if we get them actually into the GSO. So I would definitely support that. Obviously, if someone is not qualified for a position, that's a different story. But I think it's okay to also, support diversity in that regard. And then for the second question, I think, as a leader, you have to listen to compromise and listen to what people are saying. But at the end of the day, when you are, president or just in any leadership position, you have to make a decision. You know what I mean? At some point, you're going to have to, you don't necessarily have to choose, either side, but you're going to have to finally make a call. If no compromise is working, if no dialogue's working at all, then you have to realize, hey, it's time for me to make the decision. So I think I'd be very capable of doing that. So.
All right. Thank you. We still have 3 more to go. I'll come to you. Very brief.
All right, thank you very much. I wanted to commend you guys. It's not easy to put yourself out there first, so you guys are doing a good job putting yourself out there. I would have had some questions, but I'm going to eliminate them and just maybe give advice. You guys talked about communication as a very important part of what you do, what you would like to do. But one thing you guys fail to do is evaluate the existing means of communication and why that has failed. I was expecting to hear more on that. Graduate students don't read emails. Graduate students don't read newsletter. Most of the time I scroll. If I don't see anything catchy in a newsletter, I'm not going to stop by to read. There are several people who do that. So what would you do differently? I think that's some of the things I expected to hear about. But I heard you talk about advertising committee too. I think that's a very good one. You know, that's something different from what we do or what we've done in the past. I want to agree with that. And Loon, I heard you talk about tabling at different schools on a weekly basis. I also think that's a great point, that if we circle it like, hey, this week we are in Watson, next week we are in School of Pharmacy, the other week they get to know us better. I think those are great points. Barima, you mentioned something, so I have a specific question for you here. You talked about retreat for leadership. I love the idea of retreats for leadership, you know, and I don't want to think for you. I wrote down my note. I don't want to think for you, but when you talked about retreat, what are you thinking about? You know, what are you thinking of, like, who will be a part of the retreat? Is it just a retreat for GSO eBuds, or is it going to be a retreat for all students, graduate student leadership on campus? What does that entail? I love the idea of the retreat, right? But what does it entail? That's a personal question for you. Theo, you talked about housing stipend. I know we have 700,000 in reserve, right? But have you taken a moment to pause and, like, if there are 4,000 graduate students, for example, you know, and the first month, let's say January, 4,000 students apply for housing stipend, and we decide to give them $100 each, that's half of the money gone. By the second month, the reserve is empty, you know. I mean, this is something you need to put into consideration. But I think it's a good idea, like thinking of how can we assist these people. We may have to work on the logistics, like, hey, maybe we're just gonna give the first 400 people $100 to support them. That might, but I just wanted to make comment on that. Like, that's something to think about if your administration would actually look into that. And for the current GSOM, I don't know, do we have a link on the GSO website that redirects graduate students to, like, jobs on campus, job listing? Do you know? We do have it. I think that's a great one. I wasn't sure, but I know you were working on redesigning the website and all of that. So we could tell graduate students to go to the GSO website, you know, if they need access to jobs and all of that. That's a very easy place to go to. Now, a question for all of you. When Jakub asked a question of risk management, you know, I'm not sure if you guys really understand that question, because some of the things I'm expecting to hear is, what are some of the risks that the GSO is likely to, you know, incur and all of that? I didn't hear some of those risks. I only heard how to mitigate risk, but I didn't see you identify some of those risks. Some of those risks are things that I would like to hear. I know Theo talked about, like, students having events. They need to understand risk involved in event. And I think because you mentioned you belong to a fraternity listing, right? So when you mentioned that, I'm like, okay, you're thinking towards that. And for Frats Live, like, when you guys drink beer and all the things could happen. But what are some of those risks that graduates, the GSO specifically now, could face that would bring up the need to get an insurance, you know? And I think one of the reasons the question was asked was recently, I think when M joined, M brought up the idea of, hey, we need to get insurance and all of that. I was one of those people who first kicked against it because I did not understand, you know, why we needed an insurance. But having a conversation, she made us realize why. So I want to understand, if you understand the why, what are some of those risks that we need, you know?
If I leave Demi, he will speak the whole night. I'm starting. See you.
One question. We'll see when everybody responds there. You not respond. Okay. Yeah.
So.
But this is just one question.
Oh, one question. Okay. The question is about the risk management, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the question about risk. If you want to comment on other thing, that's fine also.
Okay.
My question is risk.
So for the risk management, So I will speak about in terms of like the safety point for the student. So what I'm going to do is that how can our student get more protection? The first thing. And the second thing is I will work on that. How the student mental health can be protected because of the risks. Because for me personally, what had happened to me is that I used the Broome County bus system a lot. And I had those kind of like love and hate relationship with the bus system and everything. And then I got traumatized by like some event in the bus. And then those kind of risks happened to me. And then for that time, I don't have, oh my God, it's 1 minute already.
Thank you. I think among the risk issue that we can look at is that, for instance, when students are going on, let's say, a trip and other things, all of them are risks that we take. And people go in, sometimes some might even feel sick. If they feel sick on the way, the kind of insurance and other things that they need to do. So all those things are some of the risk, assessment that we need to look at. And one of the things that we need to also consider is that everything that we are doing, there is a liability. And how do we mitigate against those liabilities? We are talking that we are having 700,000, but one liability cost can raise all the money. So if people understand some of these things, then when we are taking decision, then it helps all of us, and then it will not bring any liability to GSO. Thank you.
First, I'm going to talk about the insurance. Obviously, as stated previously, it is all about liability. I think it's kind of a balance between protecting graduate students, but then also realizing we don't want to put the GSO at risk by, having all these different events and someone gets hurt and, well, now we're completely screwed. I will say a few years ago, my original definition of risk was just drinking, but not anymore. I was on the CIW council, and a lot of the local events, even there, we had like risk management where there's like, oh, we might have had like a smoke machine or something like that, and it would be like, oh, this could like theoretically injure someone, so we can't have that at all. So I think, I don't know, we just need to ensure that to prevent injury and just kind of go through an event before we actually have it. Oh, and then also the what was the other question? Oh,
I spoke about this icon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm done. Yeah, sorry. I can continue.
Okay, so one of the risks that I potentially see is that since Sodexo is ending its lease with the Binghamton University and some other dining services is going to take over the kitchen right now, or the dining halls. So we are pretty unsure how the student employment will work. Will it going to be the same students who are going to get transferred to the new restaurant services, or they're going to get their own hiring plan or hiring process? So I want to make sure is all the students working in Sodexo right now, they get a job back in the new restaurant as well. And one of the second risk issue that I see is the insurance. Like graduate students, we pay like around $2,000 per semester in health insurance, and it's a very rare case that we use it. I didn't use or by okay, time's up.
Yeah, the retreats. I think what we can do is that we can look at it from the broader perspective. Let's say every school is going to bring, let's say, 5 representatives to meet, and then we narrow it down to, let's say, the Senate meeting. Then we narrow it down to the executive committee. So at the end of the day, everybody is included and everybody participated in it. And then when we are done, we then circulate the information that this is the consensus that we have built. This is how we are going to do it. And then we also distribute and we go back in that ladder That's from here, it goes here, it goes there, and then everybody is aware of what we are going to do. So that is how I plan to do it. Thank you.
All right. You'll be the last person.
Yes. Hi, guys. My question is why you believe you specifically are the best leader among the candidates and why you're the best leader for GSO specifically.
Like this type of questions. Okay, I'm starting.
Thank you very much. I'm the best because, one, I have the experience. Two, I have the knowledge. Three, I have studied a lot of things about GSO, and I believe I have the solution that is going to help us come out of it. Four, I believe with all the knowledge, with all the experience that I have, building on everybody's knowledge, everybody's expertise, together we are going to make GSO one of the best organizations on campus. And people will say that, yes, even if I'm undergrad, when I finish, I want to come to graduate school and participate in GSO activities. Thank you.
I think why I could represent the GSO is I'm a part of the new wave kind of people who are getting interest in GSO. I'm in CCPA, an MPA student, and there just isn't a lot of representation or interest in it. So I want to be part of the new wave of people trying to expand the interest of the GSO, and I want to lead that. And then in terms of experience, I've been parliamentarian at SA Congress. I was an SA rep for 2 years, so I've been in student government for quite a while. I know how to run a Senate meeting. I know Robert's rules. I know how to be an executive. I'm in the GSO treasurer for the MPA at GSO, so I know how to work with NEET board too and be an executive. So.
I think I would be the best leader because, as previously mentioned, I was the vice president during my undergrad. So I work very closely with the president during my times, and I know how the assembly works, how the meeting is done, how the presidency works, what are the roles and responsibilities of the president. Although it may be a different body, here is a GSO and there was a student engagement cell, but it's pretty much the same. And also, I'm very good at maintaining relationship with everyone. Everyone I talk to personally, they love me. No one hates me. Thank you.
So when Sodexo, like we eliminate kind of like end the contract with Sodexo, I was a part of the judges. And also I'm a class president right now. And then I was a Harvard College Council student member. And then I'm a graduate student right now, graduate assistant right now. And I'm a 2+4 student. And I did my undergrad in Bing. And also I'm international student who speak 8 languages. And also I am well connected on LinkedIn who could brought a lot of like alumni connection and everything. And then I am not just to lead the administration team. I'm ready to lead the whole 4,000 student community because I've been building my team back in a pharmacy school. And then I'm now ready. I want to show the graduate student that I am ready to lead you guys.
Our last question.
Okay, I will be brief. I just have one question. Thank you guys for everything you've shared so far. So I want to also acknowledge that not every grad student's experience is the same. Every grad student's what they need from the GSO is different depending on what department they're from, what school they're from. There are also a lot of grad students that don't cleanly fall into a school. And so how do you envision GSO being an equalizer for all grad students to get the most equitable experience? We've talked about, stipends, representation. Some grad students need more financial support than others. And so how can you envision your role and the leadership that you'll bring to GSO being an equitable equalizer and not just this is a policy for every single grad student? Where does that equitability come in?
Thank you. All right, 1 minute.
I really think it comes down to building a graduate community. I feel like a lot of the sub GSO organizations don't really interact whatsoever. The only real interaction is in the GSO Senate with senators, and even then, they're not really interacting with each other. So I feel like to be equitable is to actually engage and know that these people exist. Because if we don't know that, then if we don't have an actual community and we're not interacting, how could we possibly be equitable? So that's why I kind of want to have more networking events, more just any sort of event that'd be kind of like the sub GSOs are doing, to just build an overall GSO community, not just, an Indian GSO community or MPA community. I want to have GSO wide events that everyone can come to so we can interact and hear students' concerns there too. I think that's probably the best way we could probably be equitable.
Students will feel inclusive when we represent each and every student background, like their culture, their tradition, the community they come from. And for that, we have many sub-GSO organization where people like them or people belonging to their community and all, they'll be having some events. There are some events going on and GSO is working on it actively. I see regular events being held from every community on Be Engaged, but the issue is that these events are conducted during the classes time, and because of which students they miss the event because they are here to study. They prioritize attending the class. So we have to find a perfect timing to organize these events. And also it's not like only students from those particular community can go and involve in the event. And sorry, it's time.
I will definitely reach out to the 27 sub-GSO group, and then I will tell them, I'll communicate with them that I want to hear what your department of student think. So I will listen first. I will not decide anything first. When I get to the office, I'll listen first, and based on the voices of the student, we will decide different decision, different characteristic based on the differences, because those differences made us unity. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. I think we have different activities that we can look at. We can look at formal, informal activities. We have different GSO members, those that have families, those that do not have families. So in our activities, in every planning, we need to bring all this into consideration. I intend, for instance, to look at how do we even manage stress issues among people, among us. So there are people that, for instance, we create an engagement and entertainment, information activities that is going to bring us together. There are a lot of graduate students that want to release stress, maybe through sports. How do we enhance that? We engage in an activities with the undergrads, maybe volleyball, basketball, anything that will let people come together. I think those are the things that we need to look at. And then during summer, we look at, summer symposium and other things for graduate school for them to enhance their knowledge. So it's a collective thing that we are going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We have only one question online, and then after that, we will take a break. The question is to all candidates. For what reasons did each presidential candidate choose your VP, your vice president? Do you get the question? Good. Starting with you.
So during our orientation meeting, it was made clear that the president and the VP cannot be from the same school. And I met Haley, and we had a very good call and discussion where we talked about our agendas, and it turns out to be that we have very good you know, common thoughts. And even when we are discussing about our plans for the campaigning and all, we do have very common ideas, and we and I just felt that we would be a very perfect team for this position, and that's it.
So our choose VP would be from the first, are you ready to serve the community? Because we're not building a team, we're not like just doing or like just building a club. We're not building a club, we're building a community. Are you ready? And the second is we celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion, because which is really important. We love to make inclusion. And also the third point is, are you really ready to take an action? That's the point that I focused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, online questioner. I think one of the things that made us come together is that we met, we discussed our vision, our missions, and our objectives, how we want to do it. She shared hers, I also shared mine. We realized that we will meet at a certain point, and that will make us as a good team, and that is the first one. Secondly, I think in everything we need to look at diversity. We look at gender inclusiveness, a male and a female. So we said, yes, that is also a good candidate. We also look at diversity, English and African. That is also a good one. So we considered all those things, and we said that, yes, that is going to be a perfect team. And that is the most reason why we came together and said we're going to work for the association and ensure that all of us collectively will be able to make a legacy for ourselves, we'll be able to make a good name for ourselves, and then all of us will be able to also achieve our collective goals. Thank you.
So in terms of just picking a VP, like I didn't want just a figurehead. I wanted more like a partner in crime. And I feel like Rachel is definitely that. She's so hardworking. She's so smart. And I think all of you are going to be surprised the amount of research she did beforehand on university statistics or problems within the bylaws or on the website. I think you're all going to be very interested. And there are going to be issues that you haven't heard before. And you're going to be like, wow, I might be actually concerned about that. And I also just believe that, Rachel's going to work very hard for all of you. And I'm proud to have her as my VP candidate. So,
Thank you, everyone. On this note, we are going to take 10 minutes break, and then when we come, we'll continue with the VP candidate. Thank you. We have plenty pizza, water, and then any soft drink. So grab some, enjoy, take some walk around, rest, and come back in 10 minutes time. Thank you. Okay. Good.
Oh,
All right. So I believe we can start now. 2 minutes for each question. Leadership in the president's absence. So my question will be based on that. The vice president must assume the duties of the president when necessary. If you suddenly had to step into the role of the president, how prepared are you to lead the GSO? And what will be your immediate priorities? I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. Okay. If at any point you cannot hear me, please just signal that I should get louder or quieter if I'm yelling. I first want to tell you the current professional experience that I do have that would make me qualified of running in a position of this caliber. I am currently, on top of working for the university, the executive senior admin of special events at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, meaning that I am their risk management officer, and I am coordinating and collaborating with high stakeholders, often people who are donating hundreds of millions of dollars. So we cannot have things go wrong. We cannot misspeak. We have to know what our risk management policies are, and we must enforce them, even if we don't like them. I also have 5 years of experience at Penn State. I was their student engagement coordinator overseeing 2 campuses, Montalto and Greater Allegheny, where I also performed risk management tasks. I was a member of the CARE team, which was at that institution a 24-hour on-call task force specializing in Title IX and Title VI, so I'm capable of understanding those policies as well as FERPA. I also was the chair of our student fee budget committee. It did experience some of the crises that had come up before, right? I went from operating a budget of about $100,000 in student fee money to about $80,000, then to about $65,000, and still making sure that we're meeting the needs of our diverse community of our students. I have experience in committee work. I was, like I said, the chair of the Student Fee Committee. I am currently the co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Committee at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And I have been the grad coordinator for our Digital Humanities Conference that happens every year on campus. It'll be happening in April. Please attend. In those ways, I would be able to step into that role. Thank you.
Alrighty, so the first step that I would do is enforce stability within the graduate student organization and the campus as a whole. When the president takes a step down, it's my responsibility to assume their positions, but also make sure that I'm not forgetting the responsibilities that have been assigned to me as vice president. So I would ensure that there would be stability throughout the graduate student organization as my primary goal, ensuring that the rest of the E-board and all of the senators are aware of the situation and whatever has caused the president to step down, as well as understanding the different causes that are needed in order to move forward. Is this a temporary position in which I'll need to assume the responsibilities for a set period of time, or is there more broader questions that need to be asked about the future moving forward? If there needs to be another election, there's a bunch of questions that need to be asked, and that'll happen through open communication with senators. It'll happen through open communication with the rest of the E-board, and making sure that the responsibilities that I'm assuming are being taken care of in a proper manner without negating the responsibilities that the current vice president has. That's making sure that the current committees that the vice president oversees are taken care of, as well as making sure that the committees that the president oversees are being allocated time and resources outside of when the president would be able to step into those responsibilities. It would be my responsibility to ensure that all of the graduate students that are relying on a functioning E-board are able to see what is happening, and through open communication understand when there will be a change in leadership. And I hope to make them understand that I am prepared to take on that responsibility through my ability to understand these high stakes environments. I'm currently the manager of the call center for Binghamton University, so I'm responsible for every single phone call that goes through the undergraduate phone call center. If you call the 2000 number, you're getting one of my students. So I've dealt with situations like this before, and I'm prepared to do them in the future.
So, as the vice president, of course, you have to be prepared for a situation like this. Whether it's temporary or be permanent, of course, you go about things in a little bit of a different way. But being that I'm actually the president of, well, soon to be the president of 2 different clubs at pharmacy, I'm very familiar with running an e-board, with running meetings. I am the president-elect, so next year I'll be running SNAFA, which is a very large national organization, and we have a chapter at pharmacy. So I'm very familiar with not only running a meeting, but being in contact with administrators or a larger organization in that situation. And I'm confident that I could step into that role if needed. I'm also very familiar with the bylaws and the constitution of the GSO. So even though I'm not, leading the same committees or doing the same roles as my partner is planning to do next year, I'm familiar with what his job is. And enough so that I feel that I could step in if needed. And of course, I'd have to, let everybody know once that does happen that I'm going to be now stepping into that role. So I'd have a meeting, I'd introduce myself. I would, give my qualifications just in case they're not familiar with me. I would be within the Senate meetings as the VP, but I won't be the one leading the meeting as Akshay would be, so maybe everyone wouldn't be familiar with me. So my first step would be to introduce myself to the e-board, to the Senate, and then secondly, go to the administrators or anyone that the president regularly communicates with and introduce myself to them as well. But overall, I'm confident I could step into that role and lead the meetings, lead the GSO, whether it's temporary or maybe for the rest of the term. Thank you.
So I believe I would also be prepared to lead the GSO if needed to. And even if I wasn't, I would always have my e-board to ask about if I'm missing something or is there something that we could be doing. We also communicate that this might be happening to let the other graduate students that know that maybe something happened with the president, that we have to change positions, such as that. I also could try to find maybe a new replacement for vice president if needed to, because having 2 roles is a lot of responsibilities for one person to do that. And so those are like the main priorities, I would say. Converse about what's happening with the GSO to let them know that we're not dysfunctional still. We're still connected as a collaborator, one team together to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you. My next question is on Constitution and Governance Oversight. As a chair of the Constitution, Bylaws, and Chartering Committee, you will oversee the rules that guide the GSO. How will you handle a situation where existing bylaws limit the organization's ability to respond to emerging graduate student needs?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So I have familiarized myself with the bylaws and the Constitution, and I understand the way that they operate and the way that they have become inaccessible to the majority of the student body. The Constitution is almost 40 pages long, and it has a lot of intricacies that are vital to the running and functioning of the graduate student organization, but it's not accessible. The bylaws are not an accessible document because students aren't able to quickly peruse them and understand the roles that they have in the graduate student organization or understand the way that subcommittees or departmental committees operate. It is an incredibly important document, do not get me wrong, and I would be honored to chair that committee, but we also need to understand that the student body is already changing. The student body's attention span is already decreasing, and we need to make sure that that changing bylaws are accessible to the student body where we are needing to meet them. That's why I hope to implement when bylaw amendments come out, making sure that students are able to access bylaw amendments through the Instagram account, which I believe is going to be the most profitable and the best way to contact the student body. Student bodies are no longer reading emails and they're no longer looking at websites. They are primarily using social media as their form of communication. And I think we need need to utilize this in our pathway moving forward. We need to make sure that the bylaws and the Constitution is a living, breathing document. They aren't solidified for a reason. We have the ability to make amendments for a reason, and we need to make sure that when we are proposing amendments, that the entire student body is aware of the amendments that are being proposed and have the ability and capacity to make changes where need be. The entire student body of the graduate student organization is reliant on this document in order to function and in order to have the, especially finances, that it needs to operate successfully. So they should have clear communication and bylaw structuring to make sure that when the changing students' needs are met, we can meet them where they are at.
So, as the chair of this committee, the vice president should be prepared for this situation, and it's not a rare situation. We actually ran into an issue just the other day where there was a bit of a contradiction within the bylaws about how we're supposed to campaign within this election. And that is something that would fall on me as the vice president were it to come up again. And that is actually the entire point of the committee, and I would take that role very seriously. And I feel that the responsibility of being able to, solve these issues as they come and be open to suggestions from the student body as well as the GSO. But essentially what you would do is I would call a committee meeting and I'd say, this is the issue and this is what we need to solve. And then we bring that to the Senate. So that is why this committee is formed, because it's expected that things will come up, needs need to be met, needs change, and they evolve, especially, in this day and age with the social media thing as well. Like, we need to be able to meet graduate students where they are and as their needs come up. So it wouldn't be out of my scope or out of my ability to call a committee meeting, say this is what we need to do, bring it to the Senate, and then the Senate would, of course, have a vote. And hopefully we'd be able to implement that change and meet the needs of the student body as they come. But I'd say overall, this isn't a situation that I feel would be overwhelming or even unexpected. So I'm very prepared to handle it should it come up during my time. Thank you.
I agree with what the previous candidates also said about meeting with other people to get feedback and then seeing, can we change the policies to make them better for the graduate students that are in need for those. If we're doing that, the bylaws are going to become more like a dynamic documentation versus than one solid thing that you're going to stick with the whole time, because we are changing. That is correct. So to do so, if we're going to be altering the bylaws or the policies, then we should have some process or a simple process where we can do that each time, because if that's the expectation for that. So that's what I would do, create guidelines on how do we change these policies? How can we help the graduate students in need to do so? Thank you.
Yes, this is actually one area that we do need to adequately address within our bylaws, is what do we do if an emergency happens on campus or something that requires an immediate response for graduate students. So that's something that we need to address. The ability for us to call emergency sessions that are required, to take a vote on an actionable item, and to then properly document why we felt that set of bylaws needed to be temporarily or permanently changed, so that for future review, we could go back and document to make sure that we were following the correct protocols and we were acting in all of the graduate students' best interest. I am prepared to do this as part of several chairs on campus. There are times where we do have to call sessions in which we need to reevaluate our bylaws and issue an immediate response and or an immediate correction. One example of that is at Cornell for our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Committee. We needed to temporarily suspend one section of our bylaws to introduce a new memorandum about how lab employees could operate with ICE on campus, as ICE was impacting campus at that time, and we needed to get actionable information out to people. circumventing our usual vetting processes that sometimes could take 2 or 3 weeks. So that would be one example of where I've actually demonstrated action on committees in a leadership position. I think the other piece to really address here is it's very difficult historically with the GSO to get a lot of momentum going because our lack of participation. Not all of our voting members are coming regularly. It's very difficult to get things up off the ground and to make changes and feel that diverse representation across the colleges is being actualized at that level. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question is on protecting graduate student labor interests. The Vice President chaired the Committee on Employment and Labor. What are the most pressing labor concerns facing graduate students now? And how will you address them through this committee?
So recently an issue actually came up in a session we had on the Graduate Council where the dean and a few of the other graduate schools, their leaders brought to our attention that there are some graduate students who are prolonging their research or prolonging their time at the school simply because they cannot afford to transition out of being a student into the real world. And this is a real it's a real world and it's a delicate issue that we have to address, and we have to do it, with the university's best interest, but also the best interest of our grad students in mind. So I think a great way to really get to the bottom of this issue is see where we're failing in the transitional period from being a grad student to being an employee or, just being a citizen and not a student. And we need to forge deeper alumni connections. We need to look where we can, redistribute any funding or any resources to our grad students who are preparing to enter the real world, to enter the workforce, and ask them, what do you need from us? And listen to what they have to say and, provide them any resources we can. And I think the alumni is just an untapped resource that we're failing to create these connections. It's very isolating being a grad student, especially a PhD student doing research. You don't really attend classes or do anything where you're in a routine with other people or, you're contacting someone who's looking out for you regularly. You're very much on your own and it's scary. And we want them to know that we're here to support them. And, if we can connect you with an alumni who's been in your position recently, or, maybe they have already had a successful career and they can give you some guidance and some pointers on how to achieve that on your own, we need to facilitate that for our grad students.
I think some issues that are pressing for the labor concerns might be getting employment on campus or off campus, or maybe is it because the process is very challenging and do we have to simplify that to have more people employed? So I would probably speak to HR and see how complicated these processes, all the documentation that you need, especially if you're an international student, it's much harder, I feel like. As well as doing that, I do agree with becoming a student and then trying to get employment in the real world as an employee. I think we could implement more events that could be more of that type of program where we can transition from you to being just in academia and starting to go into industry or research in the industry, either or things like that.
Thank you. I think echoing what my fellow candidates were saying is there's a real pressing issue now with funding, although our current GSO president did point out there's been some work to make sure that GATA lines are funded equally across the institution. One of the things that I'm noticing specifically in Harper's College, and I suspect it's happening across all 6 of our colleges, is that some departments are not advertising widely when they have TA and GA lines that are opening up, meaning that depending on what listservs you're on, you may have access to applying for that position, or you may have never found out that it existed at all. And that is something that we can put pressure on the departments to say, these all need to be posted through our website so that everyone has access to that. That's really important. I do also, though, want to mention the union does have domain over labor on campus. And I think that we need to focus on working smarter, not harder. We need to collaborate with them more. We need to see what they need. We need to see how we can be of service because they understand how to operate within the scope of New York state law and sort of federal laws regarding labor on campus. Oh, I still have time. Okay. Also, I was looking for data on labor. Regarding graduate students on campus. And Fleischman has excellent data for undergraduate students. It says right now that almost 90% of the class of 2025 undergraduate students were employed full-time within 6 months of graduating. That's pretty good. That's higher than the national average. But I could not find anywhere where we're tracking how well or how successful our graduate students are doing. Are we higher than the national average? If we're not, how do we get there? If we're putting these resources in for undergraduate students, we absolutely can put these resources in place for graduate students, and that's where the GSO would be effective.
Thank you so much. And my ideas very similarly echo those who have come before me. I'd like to say that this is a two-prong issue. The first prong is current graduate students who are employed on campus right now. The second prong is graduates who are finally entering the workforce, not having adequate resources to enter the workforce successfully. So I'm a student worker here on campus, and I'm limited to 29 hours a week per New York State, and international students are limited to 20 hours a week working part-time on campus. And this doesn't create a sustainable, livable wage for students who are financially independent. And we are working with the GSEU in order to make sure that the wages are equitable across the different departments. And we want to make sure that not only are academic jobs posted for the graduate student organization constituents, but we want to make sure that every single job is posted. So we're talking about listservs that are including jobs on campus in the libraries, jobs that are off campus that we have found connections through and we are making connections for. We want to talk about jobs that are creating stepping stones into future work, and we want to take a look at jobs that are being posted for internship positions for graduate students that are not being paid, and making sure that unpaid work is being supported by the GSO in being stipend later on. So supporting on a cumulative level, making sure that students are being supported as they enter the workforce, making sure they have the networking ideas and they have the network to succeed as postgrads, and then making sure that students on campus right now have the resources that they need to thrive and survive on campus, and making sure that there's communication and clear communication lines. A lot of students don't know where to go if they are students on campus and they're being employed. So making sure we keep those clear is vitally important.
Thank you. My next question is on strengthening organizational governance. The Vice President, again, oversees chartering and other governance matters. What reforms or improvement will you propose to make the GSO structure more transparent and effective?
Yeah, this is a great question. So this is what I was thinking about, like the processes and making the systems more simpler. Like, for example, charting. We want to make that simple, having new orgs come in and do the process much easier. So I would create guidelines on how to do that. So now they can just focus on getting support from the other students and showing that representation versus then being discouraged by the process of getting chartered from the GSO. And so that would be the main thing of doing that with multiple processes that are happening, making it much simpler so it's so much easier to get into and join GSO's initiative.
Thank you. I feel like I have more than 2 minutes worth of things that I need to say. So if there's something that I missed, please either ask about it or like come and talk to me later. Like Barima and I have spent hours discussing this exact thing. I really want to pitch here, and there's a million different ways to talk about all of the ways we need to be more transparent and do better on a professional level. But I really, really support this idea of a retreat in May in which when the GSO, in which all elected members, all appointed members need to be present for a whole day of workshopping, maybe 2 days, depending on what we need, in which we all leave knowing exactly what we are doing come the fall semester. We publish a calendar of events. We publish what we have earmarked in our budget so that the students can see that coming in on the first day of the fall semester. Why? One, because then we're not in the chaos of things throughout the year scrambling to get things together, but two, so that if there are issues with the transparency or students have an issue with what we're spending money on or who we've appointed to something, et cetera, they have it that first day when they're not distracted yet. And they can come into our office hours and say, this is something that needs to be put on the next Senate meeting's agenda so that we can discuss this because we disagree. Or because we do agree, or because I have an idea. I saw that there's money earmarked for service projects. I have a service project that's really important. And then I think a lot of people on the presidential ticket talked about open communication. That's one way of forming open communication, is telling people this is our plan. If you don't like our plan, please come and talk to us so that we can change that. It's also a good way of making sure that what happens at our Senate meeting is organized, is actionable, and once again, everybody should be leaving a meeting knowing what their role is. When you come back to the next meeting, you should have completed that so that we can move forward. Thank you.
Perfect, absolutely. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the current clarity that the GSO provides its students through the Sunshine Policy. It's one of the things outlined in the bylaws, which allows for clear transparency for all graduate students to see into the workings of the GSO. But I'd like to extend this into the subcommittees and suborganizations and the departmental organizations. A student of a specific department should be able to see what their department heads are utilizing their funds for. We should be able to see that clear communication, and we should be able to question what specific funds are being used for. It's vitally important to understand how much money each department is being given at the beginning of a year, but then also, where is that money being used? How is that being used? And is it being beneficial? Is it beneficial for the student population? I also want to bring into question the chartering, the way that the bylaws are set up and supporting organizations once they have become chartered. There is no outline structure for an organization once it's been chartered. There is no outlining structure on how many events they need to host, their community that they're engaging with, or anything when it comes to their post-chartering. And I think that there should be more clarity. Organizations should have a set amount of events that they need to plan per year. They need to have a set amount of events that hit specific requirements for each year. There should be events that are open to the public, that are on Binghamton campus so that they are accessible, or any of the other campuses within the Binghamton umbrella. We should be able to access these students, and that happens with looking at the bylaws and looking at the constitutions and making sure there is absolute transparency, not only at the GSO level, but at the actual subcommittee level. And that's what I hope to bring to the GSO, is that Sunshine Policy down to the departmental level.
So really, I believe the core issues that are affecting the GSO and our ability to be effective and transparent to our constituents is, one, the delegation is lacking within the Senate and within the GSO structure as a whole. And two, our optics, obviously, everyone's been mentioning it all night, are extremely lacking. So even if people do have questions, or even if they do know what the GSO is, there is no, there's a lack of optics and just communication about who is doing what. Who do I go to if I have a question about this? Whose job is it to make sure that this is happening? And then this also goes back to the delegation issue. No one, even within the GSO, is fully aware of what their job is and what their responsibilities are and what their end goal is within that year of their election. So I think first, what we need to do within the GSO and our delegation is more involvement with these committees. We have a lot of committees. As a VP, I would be chairing 2 of them. And I can say for the chartering committee, why don't we also go around to all the graduate schools? You know, we have Prabhu, our president now. He just runs around all day to all these administrators and everybody else and comes back. He tells the Senate what happened. The committees go and talk, and the committees come back and say, oh, we talked about this and this is what needs to happen. The committees need to have more of a core responsibility and responsibility to action the ideas that they have within their meetings. So I think that, maybe a couple members of our chartering committee this year can do their rounds to all the graduate schools. Hey, do you have any orgs already? I can say for one pharmacy, we have probably 20 organizations within pharmacy, but we're not chartered through the GSO. We're, independent. So why don't we have this committee go around and be like, you can charter through GSO, you can get GSO funding, you can, have more events and more opportunities, and we're who you can come talk to if this is what you want to do. So that's my ideas for this one.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. My last question is on handling institutional challenges. Graduate student concerns often involves complex institutional policies. How will you use the authority of your office to influence policy discussions that affect graduate employment and governance?
Thank you. I already sort of walked you through my professional experience doing this type of work as a full-time staff member at Penn State. This is where it's really important to understand the institutional knowledge that already exists, not to reinvent the wheel, but to make sure that we're directing students to the appropriate offices who can help them. For example, did you know that there is a free legal clinic on campus where you can go to if you are having a problem, for example, with your landlord, if you think they're unfairly evicting you? I think very few students know about this. I think this is actually something we should be expanding because while they are somewhat volunteer, pseudo-volunteer lawyers that work in the community and are alumni of Binghamton and are just dedicating their time, Penn State had a model in which they hired 2 full-time attorneys who would actually represent students if they needed to go to court. So if you needed to send your landlord a notice about something because they were violating your rights or they never fixed that heating unit or your fridge is leaking, they can, for free, because the university pays them, send a letter officially to your landlord, and almost 9 times out of 10 at Penn State it would get fixed. But that one time that it didn't, the university already paid them. So you could retain them for free to go to court and help you, advocate for you through that process. We need to expand this. And this is something I think our current president, who is new, so this is an excellent time for the GSO to be engaging her in discussions about what we as grad students want or what we need, especially as it revolves around labor. Like I said, we love to tout that we're R1. That came off the backs of our graduate students, all of our publications, all of our conferences. Now's the time to really be sitting down with her and saying, this is where we need you to allocate money and attention and funding. And that's where I would start, is with that legal clinic. Thank you.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And the legal clinic is a great resource. I have used it. So it is absolutely an incredible start. But we need to start not only with policies that affect the university as a whole, but we need to start with policies that are directly impacting the GSO directly. I'm looking at the Graduate Student Organization's Graduate Student Conference Travel Reimbursement Fund. That is a clear document. So there's no complexities within the document, but the document itself doesn't allow for additional funding past the outlined, very ambiguous outlining of what is allowed and not disallowed when it comes to hotels, when it comes to travel, when it comes to the actual conferences that students are allowed to attend. There's also no coverage for visa fees, printing costs, food, rental cars, and mileage. So that was something that I would address primarily as something that is directly impacting the graduate students as a whole. I also want to take a look at what the students need. As an SOM student, I only have direct interaction with other SOM students. What we need to do is host roundtables where we're not only talking to the GSO funded departments, we're talking to the students themselves, even students who don't directly associate with one of the GSO chartered organizations. We need to be talking to students directly to see what they actually need. At this point in time, the GSO has no direct pulse on the student body. What we have is chartered organizations that represent the students as a whole, but we have no direct source into the students. What we need to do is we need to be contacting the students directly and making sure that we're highlighting their needs. We're not looking at what the chartered organizations need, although we should be looking at what they need. We need to be checking the pulse of the constituents themselves. So by hosting roundtables with both chartered organizations, non-chartered organizations in different departments, and the student body as a whole will be able to see what the students actually need.
So the issues and the complexities that come forth when the GSO is trying to represent all graduate students and meet all of their needs is not within each graduate school. It is simply when we try to come together. So I think regardless of what the issue that arises is or what the policy is that we're trying to maybe, get feedback on or assess how we can best serve our graduate students, what decision we need to make, we need to improve the connection between us and each of the graduate schools. And that's why one of my campaign initiatives is on that chartering committee is to create the graduate leadership roundtable, which is essentially the vice president meets with the senators that we now have from each of the 6 graduate schools, Decker, pharmacy, everything. There is no confusion within Decker about what their graduate students need. There is no confusion at my school, at pharmacy, about what we need and what we want. The issue arises when we try to communicate that to the larger university and assess, how it differs from other graduate students and what their needs are. So the point of me creating that roundtable would be to have that separate and, private and maybe a little more casual meeting time with these senators and ask them, what do you need? What do you want? What are the problems happening at your school right now? Tell me so I can go back in our Senate meetings and, in a time effective way, because we all know the Senate meetings are only an hour and there's so many things we have to get through. And it can be a little daunting maybe if you're the pharmacy senator to be like, oh, pharmacy needs help with this. And it's awkward and there isn't really a lot of time specifically for that all the time because we have so many things that the GSO is trying to deal with that you feel that what you have to say doesn't matter. But the point of that roundtable would be to say what you need matters to me as a vice president. I'm going to make sure that it happens.
I also agree with the previous candidates, as well as meeting and discussing with the graduate students about their needs and what concerns they have. With doing that, listening to what they have and trying to connect with other administrative people to show them what the issues are and have data behind it so they can see that this is a big issue that's happening, and that's where we would have lots of communication between the administrator as well as the undergrad, and that's what I would advocate for changing those, maybe if it's altering a policy that we have to do, and then asking, of course, the e-board to see what they think about this, just having multiple perspectives about the changes.
Candidates, thank you so much. We are now, the floor is now open. How many hands? 4, 5. Hey, the whole, what do you call it? The whole hall want to talk to the candidate. Okay. Please, now that we have so many questions, so many hands, 1 question each.
About to go home.
So,
there's no more.
We have questions online. Ask them. Okay, so we can concentrate those here for now.
Hi, everyone again. So, I think in general, there is, I think, Rachel was talking about the different types of diversity or of a student body, grad student body, and it looks like there is not a good understanding of different types of employed people, a lot of different students whatsoever. But you talked a lot about how you will collect the concerns. The question not to Rachel but to everyone, how you will collect the concerns about issues that grad students face, regardless of what type of grad student they are. How are you planning to actually address them? For now, I just heard we're going to gather and we need to receive those concerns. What is next? How are you going to deal with the university, with the president, with HR, with the Senate? So it's not only talking among ourselves, it's about doing something with it, right?
The question is for all candidates. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. And I'd like to say that, absolutely. So as much as I'd like to say, I'd like to talk to every student, that's not a feasible option. And also there's not every constituent's needs will be met within the first second. What we need to do is we need to triage and we need to prioritize and we need to talk to the administration directly. I think that as naive as it might sound, the e-board will not know every answer, and it's the e-board's responsibility to accumulate as much information as it can through talking directly to the constituents, but also talking to people who are informed, talking to people that are in the graduate student union, talking to students who work for the administration more directly. We need to be speaking to these students and coming to an understanding together before approaching the administration with our concerns. We need to be triaging questions. So taking in those questions, addressing them by their concern, and then maybe delegating those statements off to separate committees, making sure that their needs are met and heard. And thank you.
Yes, it's a great question, and I understand where you're coming from, and obviously you're representing your constituents and your concerns for them, but we cannot have a single framework for every single issue that arises because every issue is different and has its own specific needs that we need to address. And the responsibility of the GSO and our e-board isn't necessarily to solve the problem on our own because we don't have the power to. Our job is to listen. What do you need? Connect you to resources, maybe, rearrange things where we can. But as far as like specifically addressing employment issues within the university or outside of the university, it has to be on a case by case basis because that is not our sole responsibility and our job as a GSO. We are your representatives, we are your voice, and we're going to do whatever we can and speak to whoever we need to solve the issues that you have, but that's really all that we can do.
I'm not only talking about labor in general, there are a lot of different things that, can come up with the governance of things. And I represent 40% of grad students.
Could you maybe clarify exactly who?
Example. Can I give an example? So this is the issue that political science department had and some other departments had as well. So GSO represents all grad students, master's and PhD students. So right now, when it comes to the funding for the sub-organization depends on the number of students that registry provides. So according to their rule, they only provide the number of employed TA and Js, which is for political science is 24. That's what determines our budget for our sub-organization. But we have 40 students who are grad students. Why those numbers not included there? And there was a question that we brought it up with the registry, but they didn't want to address it at all. So GSO is responsible here to address these issues. It's because it's connected directly with the grad student governing.
Okay, in that case, if it's an issue within the GSO and the funding that we allocate to, different students and their organizations, that is just to ensure that it's fair and that, the funds are allocated in a way that makes sense and, it has to be fair. If there's more students in one organization, they're going to need more money for their events and anything they want to do than it would if there was only, how many students in a smaller organization. So it's not about discriminating based on what school they're from. It's more simply about the numbers and the expenses they would have.
It means that the registry office does not count doesn't count all grad students in a department as a grad student. They only count the number of
The number of what? I'm sorry.
A's and J's, only state employees. Let's say we have 24 students, grad students who are TAs and J's, and the register office only give you the information about these people, not about the other 20 students who are also part of our program, but they're not employed through the university. It's a problem of the office of register.
The registrar.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's an issue of representation and you don't feel that you're being represented fairly, then we would do whatever we need to do to ensure that we change that bylaw or that, rule within their constitution or their administration and go have a meeting with them and really bring the concerns of your students to them and see what they can do about it. That is just the limit of what we are able to do as, an organization and as an e-board. And that's what we're running to do, is to be the best representative for you that we can be.
So if we collected all the concerns about some of them not being represented, then can we talk to the registrar and show that these people are not being represented? Why is that? Is there a reason behind that? Can we compromise and say, can we include them? Is there something that we could do to include them? So that's how I would go about it with that and show.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to address that, and then I'm going to address your first question. Well, that was your first question, but yeah. That is specifically an issue with chartering. English, I would say, relatively benefits from this because we have so many GA and TA lines that we tend to get a little bit more money than, for example, political science, as I think we have like 55-ish. But that we don't have to go to like other departments on campus to try and sort out our own chartering issue. That's when you charter your organization at the beginning of the year, which everyone has to do, ask your department to send you the list of currently registered students, whether they're funded or they're not. Your department is collecting that. We submit that, and then it's our accountability on the GSO's end to make sure that we're going through that data that we're actually getting and making sure that we're not just counting what the registrar is counting. We're counting what the departments are counting as students in there. That's a very simple process, but it does make more work for us on the back end. And that kind of ties into how I was going to address your question initially, which is the problem is that GSO representatives historically just don't show up. We have surveys, we have frameworks, they are effective. There was lots of thought that went into them. There's institutional knowledge, we have M, thank you, you're doing great. But we aren't showing up. And what Barima and I want to do is to empower our senators to actually understand what they're capable of doing. If you're elected official, if you elect us and we don't do our jobs and we don't show up to these meetings that we're going to say we have, or we're not using the data that we have, you can remove us. Senators can vote to remove. And we need to empower senators so that they know that. If there's not action being taken, if you don't like it, if we're not going to the meetings we're saying we're going to have, hold us accountable, vote us off. That's really important. And that's what it really, I think, comes down to. We're not seeing action because we are not showing up. Thank you.
I just have one quick response, and I have an actionable solution that we have right now. Right now, the GSO is taking information from the registrar's office in order to determine funding. There is a separate office on Binghamton University campus that specifically looks at how many students are enrolled in under a major in the university. That's talking about undergraduates and graduate students. And I use that information actually during my research for my debate today to find information about a separate issue that's important to me, which is young graduates. About 15% of the students under the GSO are 4+1 candidates, but that same information can be utilized by the GSO to redetermine chartering information and ensure that if there are more than 24 political science graduates, then that's an issue we can solve this term even. We can use the information published by the university. It's actually widely accessible. It's a Google, it's an Excel sheet that's published at the beginning of every term. They just published fall 2025. I'm sure come next year, they'll publish fall 2026. We should be utilizing that information instead of registrar information, and that's something that we can do right now.
I'll come to you. What's up?
Thank you so much. Before coming here, I talked with I talked with many people, but 3 of them gave me questions. They're not necessarily questions, but that just concerns about that I would like to hear your opinions about. And I'm sorry, I apologize. They're all about funding and money. One of them is about the professional development funds and emergency funds that the graduate student organization gives to students. Most of them are reimbursement funds. But those students are saying that in most cases, they don't have the funds to spend so that they can be reimbursed. So what do you think about that? Then number 2 is about the funding at the departments. A student told me that he receives half of in-state tuition, even though he is out of state. I mean, he pays out of state tuition. So he does half of the 20 hours, that is 10 hours, but receives half of in-state. Now, half of in-state tuition is better if you are paying in-state tuition, but significantly less if you're paying out-of-state tuition. Number 3, and the last one, is about, this is a leader who is saying that he is serving as a senator, like me, but he feels like those positions are volunteer, and that's very nice. It can contribute to your professional development, your CV, but a lot of them don't care about that, and they feel like it is, what about if those positions like receive some form of encouragement in form of like some money, even if it's $20 or $50, because some of them, this student told me that he even wants to unsubscribe from M's emails because he feels completely unmotivated, and it's very difficult, and I think M can testify, to find even people to fill those positions because they just feel like it's a waste of, not a waste of time, but they're just unmotivated. Thank you.
The second question, the difficult.
The second one was about the funding. Some departments provide half of in-state tuition. You still do 10 hours, but half of in-state tuition, meaning if you're a New York State resident, you pay significantly less than if you're an international student. So they feel that if they're an international student and they are paying out-of-state tuition, then doing 10 hours and being paid half of in-state tuition is less if they're paying out of state. Like they feel like they should be, to be equitable, they should, the funding should cover half of out of state if you're out of state, and half of in-state if you're in-state. I don't know if it makes sense. Yeah.
I think people just want us to empty our 700,000 reserves.
Okay, I could probably do it in 2. For your first question about the professional development fund, that is an issue that I could see arising. An idea that came to my head first was maybe have an emergency situation or maybe form you could fill out. Like it does take time for things to be reimbursed, but maybe if you could bring it to the attention that, oh, I actually need to be reimbursed, immediately prior to spending the funds because I don't have my own funds to be reimbursed from. That could be an option. That's something that we could push to a committee and maybe come up with some other ideas for that as well. But that's a problem that I could see a lot of students facing. As for your second question, I'm not completely familiar with that process or who would like delegate that. But in my mind, it seems fair, if you're being reimbursed for half of what you're paying, it should apply across whether you're paying in-state or out-of-state tuition. But I would definitely, do some more research on that and get back to you with some possible solutions to that for those students. What's the third question?
What was the third question?
The third question. Oh, that I understand where that student was coming from. Maybe if we reimbursed our senators, there'd be a bit more participation within the GSO. And I don't believe that is the direction to go. We love our senators. I'm a senator currently, but it's more about the passion and the dedication to your own school that we're looking for from the senators, and rather than the financial contribution. And
given the amount of time that they contribute to the GSO, I'm not sure that would be the best direction to go. But I will say I do believe that we can be using our funding more to incentivize people to be more involved and maybe to have more involvement within the GSO. You know, sometimes as a grad student, you're weighing, oh, like I have to study and like, oh, there's an event, you know, like even though I need the information being presented at that event, like it doesn't supersede the studying or the work that I need to do. So maybe giving more of an incentive when we have events or, you know, when we table, you know, providing different things for students, a little bit of a thank you for your involvement, or like we see you and we appreciate you. I definitely believe that we can be redirecting more funds towards that and, you know, giving our grad students a little bit of a, you know, food or a token or something to take home and to feel appreciated and to feel seen. So I agree with that to a degree.
Yeah, that was a great point. I do agree with like the emergency fund for the professional development. Have that just in case if they really need it, and then see like prioritize like how much do they really need it compared to another one. There is we do have funding, but we don't have as much to give out if everyone's receiving the same amount, which is a big challenge. Also, talking about the in-state and out-state, I do agree though it should be like half of wherever you're coming from, because it makes no sense. Why are you getting less than someone else who's in-state just because of your location? Like it seems unfair, in my opinion. And then same with like implementing incentives. It doesn't have to be money. Yeah, I totally agree with the previous candidate about like showing your appreciation. Maybe giving I guess maybe more power, more say, and that will encourage them to want to stay as senator or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, first question. This is possible. It is possible to get your money up front, not currently through the GSO structure, but this is possible. It's a New York State concern, right? But the issue is if you this is a little bit more nuanced, but if we gave you your money up front, and you fail to submit within a reasonable time frame the correct documentation justifying what you spent, what happens is the state will tax that as additional wages, which is problematic if you're on a GATA line, perhaps. It also is just like you get that 1099 extra income statement and you realize you may owe, especially in New York State, a significant amount of money. So the reason that most entities on campus make you do the reimbursement form is because students just don't submit for reimbursement, and it hurts them in the long run when come April and they need to do their taxes. We could talk more about that though. Like there's a lot of information about that, and there's other ways of roping that all in that we can talk about in terms of like, could we, what are actionable steps the GSO could take? Could we implement a quicker turnaround process with the treasurer? I know the treasurer currently, Liz, she works insane hours. She's got like 2 kids. She herself is teaching classes, and she moves quick. I get my reimbursements within like, I don't know, like 3 weeks, which is pretty standard. But could we offer her more support? Could we clean up the budget this year so that it's just quicker? Yes, I think we could do all of those things. When it comes to the issue of residency, there is an office that oversees that. I would direct that student to that office, the Office of Residency. They can offer more guidance specifically for that student's situation. I guess also when we're talking about like inequitable issues, and our international students are treated very poorly in terms of our contract process, but I'm going to go back to, we'd redirect that to the union. The union's doing excellent work. They're very motivated students. I was with them when we walked out of classes. We were treated very poorly. The former president locked the doors, so our union leadership couldn't present them with our petition. That was unacceptable. That's where the GSO, I think, can step in and really support the union. We need to be showing up to those things because we need to be a collective demanding force. And then finally, when it comes to engagement, first, we do have an extra incentive. If you serve in a position in the GSO at all, you get an extra $600 of travel money. We talked about that they're $400 for master's, $600 for PhD. We talked about the problems with that, right? Like it's only covered up to 60% of your travel. maybe that's an area we need to be looking into. Why is it not 100 if I'm entitled to 1,200 because I'm a PhD student and I'm serving in a leadership role? Why am I not getting it to cover the full 100? I don't know. Thank you. I'm out of time.
Absolutely. I agree with everything that has been said before. I wanted to start first with the funding issue. I think that we need to look at the entire budget and we need to take a step back and look at it again and make sure that we're utilizing funds to the best of our ability. If students aren't able to make those upfront payments and then expect reimbursement with up to 3 weeks of delay, then we need to have either a form or a petition in order for certain exceptions to be made. And that doesn't have to be a 100% full exception made for a specific student, because that is severely impractical if we are allocating the full amount. But if we can allow partial direct reimbursements at time of purchase, then maybe that's something we should look into, a 50% at the time of payment and then 50% once we get the records and we fully understand everything. And that's something that we need to take a look at with the budgeting committee and making sure that that's something that can happen. Within the budget itself, we have some issues that I think we should be addressing directly. We have clubs that are being given money, GSO money, and aren't hosting events and aren't sending their senators. I don't want to call out the SOM directly, but we have an economics club on campus. Yeah, you're laughing. We have a graduate student organization that has not shown up once to any Senate meeting. They have not hosted a single event this semester. I don't want to be calling people out, but the next administration needs to be direct. So we need to confront the current leadership of that club and say, hey, if you refuse to host events, if you refuse to send your senators to Senate meetings, we will revoke the $912 we allot them every year. That's currently what's sitting in our budget. And can $912 help the other student who is required for conference meetings? Absolutely, I can guarantee it. And if there are other committees, the political science department that needs that $912, can we allocate that fairly? How are we going to see what we can do if we aren't holding senators accountable and holding the GSO itself accountable? And that's how we can get senator engagement. And that leads to your third question. I'll skip it a little bit. Oh, crap. But senator engagement, this is something that's absolutely vital. And we need our senators to be engaged in order to have a running and successful GSO. And I think that could come with a stipend. Time is money and money is time. If a student is spending the 1 hour every Friday to attend a Senate meeting, that is 1 hour they cannot be working. That is 1 hour they cannot be studying. That is 1 hour they are spending of their time at a Senate meeting talking about important issues. And I think that could be reimbursed. What that looks like should be talked about with the senators. Maybe it's a stipend, a small stipend, if we're only talking about 1 hour of work. But can we prove senators are spending more time, additional resources, using other resources to their benefit? Can we add additional money to their to the departmental organizations per senator engagement? If a senator has a 100% attendance rate, maybe their organization should deserve more funding than someone who doesn't show up.
All right, thank you. You say you want 1 minute.
Yes, I agree with everything that you said. I just wanted to respectfully add a little bit of clarification to the issue of if we can give money to students in advance. The problem becomes an individual tax liability to the student if they do not follow through and submit for reimbursement. It looks like they got paid an extra $1,000 or $600, and that's very problematic for especially international students when they have particular visa requirements that they need to make. So we can do that. It's a question of, is that serving the students the way that we need it to serve the students? And then I just want to say I don't think it's a bad thing if our subcommittees are not using the full amount of money allocated to them. I don't want to make our grad students' lives harder. That's our job, is to do the hard work. If they're not using their money, I believe it just goes back into the GSO budget at the end of the year. It's not like they get to keep that money. So if we allocate $900 and they only spend $400 because that's what their students want and that's what their students can reasonably accommodate, we get that money back. Oh, sorry. If you wanted to,
for 5 seconds. Absolutely. I respect everything that you've said right there. But what I'm saying, especially with the reallocation of the budget, is I'm talking about the current academic year. So if a graduate organization has proven historically that they aren't utilizing their budget to the fullest of its extent, I'm not saying that it's money lost or money stolen. I'm saying that's money that could have been utilized during that academic year in a more beneficial manner to the student population as a whole. I don't think that that money is being lost, frivolously, but if a $900 expense is what's stopping an incredibly successful event from happening for a different organization and they're unable to fundraise for it, that $900 should be allocated to other subcommittees within a respectable manner. And I think that's something that the treasurer and that the budgeting committee needs to take a look at and needs to address. But that direct money during the academic year, I think, is something that we should be addressing with organizations that aren't hosting proper engagement within their departments.
Thank you. Do you also have anything to say? Thank you. All right.
Hi guys. I have two questions and a third one for, I think your name is Rachel. Yes. It kind of follows your response. I'll start with that one. I know that a lot of people join some e-boards just for the resume and don't do their responsibilities. And I speak from someone who was in the undergrad clubs and had poor leadership and that didn't do the responsibilities and our budget got cut. That affects future e-boards that actually want to do events. How would you combat that so it doesn't hurt future e-boards? And then for my questions for all of you, I know a lot of you have jobs and other extracurriculars and obviously academics. How are you going to manage your time with doing such a big responsibility, such as vice president of the graduate student organization? And my second question is there something in the bylaws or constitution that you think requires attention immediately or you'd like to change come the fall semester?
So many yes.
Okay, so for the first question, time management, yeah, I do a lot of orgs outside, and I do have I also work as a tutor. So with time management, I learned that I have to start things early and know when the deadlines are and prioritize which deadlines are coming first and give me more time to start those projects or whatever tasks I have to do. And just in case if I have issues, I can go talk to people and ask how I can be helped with this or can you help me with this? And then with one of the policies, I think, yeah, the funding is a big one, especially that 60%. Like, how can we distribute much nicer? Where can they get 100%? But who will get that is like a big challenging question to figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of time management, thank you for asking that. That's a very good question. I think we probably should always be asking. So I just made candidacy into my program, which now means that I have all of the things that I've been doing, I've also been doing on top of taking 3 classes. Now that I'm a candidate in my PhD program, I don't have classes anymore, so I have essentially freed up about 20 hours in my Monday through Friday schedule. So I will have time to do that. I think this position only calls for 10 hours a week, but I will have 20. Also, I would like to point out that I was the one that coordinated, alongside the Graduate English Organization, our New York bus trip. That took a lot of time and energy on top of the fact that I was taking classes and doing everything else. And I coordinated that on behalf of the GSO unpaid. So I would like to continue to do those types of programs. I have a whole list here, and I'd be very happy to talk to anybody who would like to look through them. It would be great if I were elected so that I could have that time and that space to actually do the work I've already been doing, as opposed to doing it for free. And I will say I won't maybe it's not a thing to say, but I won't stop doing that. We're still going to, in the GEO, we're still committed to running a fall New York bus trip and a Boston spring trip, which is what by request people asked for. They asked for Boston. And so I will still do that work, but it would be great if elected and actually given the space and the proper time to do that. In terms of funding, I hope that I already sort of addressed that in my last statement, so I'd like to pass that along.
Thank you. Could I have 3 minutes to address the 3 questions that I was given? Yeah, because I'm special. In all seriousness, I definitely respect where you're coming from when it comes to e-boards and representing their constituents properly, just as the GSO e-board is expected to run their or respect their constituents. So I think that it comes down to having that pulse on the general campus and ensuring that clubs that have e-boards that are not acting in their best interest have a complaint line or have a line to the e-board, to the executive e-board, to ensure that changes happen. If an e-board isn't functioning as it should be, it is the chartering commission to be able to revoke. It's the chartering it's the chartering commission's responsibility to, thank you, to revoke charters where necessary. And it's also our responsibility to ensure that every constituent has the resources to create charters as they please. So it's a dual-edged sword as we're tackling clubs and organizations that are not committed to being on Binghamton's campus, as well as ensuring that every voice is heard, especially those who don't have proper representation. So that's one issue. Managing time, I definitely have done the managing schedules, but I think the responsibility of the vice president speaks before anything else on a personal level. I think that understanding the representation of over 4,000 students is more important than anything on a personal level. And by representing yourself properly during your time as vice president, I think that speaks more wonders to anything that someone can have on a personal level. If I were to be elected vice president, I'm no longer representing myself during the 10 hours that the vice president allotted just under the salary. That's GSO time. But also, if that's more than 10 hours, that's more than 10 hours if that's what constituents need. And then for bylaw immediate attention, I'm glad that you asked that question because I love the bylaws. I love reading any sort of documentation. There are definitely certain things that I would absolutely address. The first thing is the sunshine policy. I want to make sure that the sunshine policy is applied to every single sub-organization within the GSO, and that starts by amending the bylaws to reflect that. I think that especially financial concerns should be something that is open to the public, and it will take more time out of the budgeting committee's agenda, and it will take more time out of the specific subcommittee's agenda in order to make sure that those budgets are accessible to the public. But I think that's something that is a vital concern to the broader general public, is seeing those sort of financial information. And then the second bylaw that I would hopefully amend is a bylaw introducing engagement reports, something that allows for the GSO to reflect on how much engagement is being put into a GSO sub-org outside of how many GAs or TAs that, as Victoria was mentioning before, that we currently use that model now, or even if we use the new model that reflects course enrollment. I want to see how much actual activity is happening within each sub-org.
So first, thank you for the questions. For the first one, personally, I'd say the time management won't be an issue for me, being that I have been doing a lot of work with the GSO and also with orgs within my college as well. And I haven't been getting paid for it, but it's just out of pure interest and pure dedication to the graduate community. I don't have an issue setting time aside to, get things done that need to be done. And also, I'll be a third-year pharmacy student. That's like my 5th year of college. Like, I've gotten to the point where it's not an issue for me to manage my classes and any other responsibilities that I have within my life. So I think that the reimbursement for the role will definitely help me actually be even more available to you, even if the time would be over the 10 hours that's expected. Like, I would have a bit more freedom actually to dedicate time to this. So that won't be an issue for me personally. As for the second one, any bylaws that I want to change, or I guess ideas that I have as VP, I think I've mentioned them, but I'll just reiterate that roundtable that I want to start would be written into the bylaws under the chartering committee that I would lead as the VP. I definitely want to get that started and, have it continue even after I no longer am on the GSO, because I think it would really, serve all the graduate students and resolve a lot of issues that we see coming up with miscommunication and just, struggling to connect with the student body. So I really want to see that be implemented this year. The other thing, actually, through this process, I think that we can reevaluate some of the changes that we've had recently to the election section of the bylaws. Maybe a couple of things are a bit redundant now or don't exactly match up, but it is the first year that we've had these changes. So I think maybe revisiting those and ensuring that everything is just smoothed out would be another priority of mine. And then, of course, I'm open to anything that the graduate students tell me that they want, and I'll bring it to my committee and make sure it happens.
Okay, 1 minute.
Less of a rebuttal, more of just there is when we're talking about changing the bylaws, amending the bylaws, and talking about or working through, I think up here, how do we want to proceed with organizations that maybe aren't going to Senate meetings, aren't spending their money, things like that. We could do what a lot of other organizations and institutions do, which is like Millersville, and I think some student government at Penn State does, which is no one starts with any money. Your senator has to go to a Senate meeting and propose an agenda, an activity, a workshop, a webinar, a guest speaker, whatever, with a budget, with, who's responsible for marketing, who's responsible for these things, who's invited, who can go, and then the Senate would say, yes, we agree and we approve your $600 event, or sorry, we're not paying for this alcohol party that you're doing in someplace that we think is too risky. And in that way, only the people who want the money will use the money, but it's work intensive. Sorry.
All right. Rabo, you'll be the last person. So hold on. Your hand was also back. So how many questions do you have? I wanted to tie them so that they just respond to them. Okay.
After taking the VP position, what would be that one decision you would take, or the issue would you address? Why and how would you address that issue?
Did you get the question? Okay. Please jot them down.
After taking the VP position, how would you address that one high priority issue or a decision would you take? What decision would you take and why would you take that decision?
What's one high priority issue?
As VP, what is one of the highest priority will you take and why? And how are you going to address them? You want to add?
Hi. So I have just one quick question. First of all, I think all of you are doing very great. But my question has to do with representation. I see that all of you have leaders or your partners who are running for presidents are all male, and I mean just one is a female. So out of 5 candidates, 4 are men, and we just have one who is a woman. To me, for me, I don't know. Let me just reserve what I have to say about that. But my issue again with the representation, as the 4 or the 5 women or 6 women who would end up being in office to represent us, what are some of the things that are on your top priority to represent women in the graduate community? When I say this, I mean in the context of mental health, family issues, because I know there are some women here who have kids, they have families. How do they balance school, work, microaggression, sexual assaults? How do you plan to represent women in these areas and represent them properly? Because again, you are going to work mainly with these men who are going to be or hopefully going to be president, except for one. So how do you make sure your voice is heard in these rooms, and how do you make sure, even though you are vice presidents or presidents, you are still going to be seen and heard?
So I'll let them respond to these questions. Then when I come back, I'll take all the necessary questions, and then that'll be it. Okay, so 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So first question, one of the highest priorities. I feel that all my agendas are of the highest priority, but one thing that I thought relates to a lot of the pieces and concerns that we've been hearing today is that legal representation and access to it for free. It's something I've seen work as a Penn State employee who got to liaise with the legal services provided on campus. This is something I actually, my first year here, brought to the GSO's attention, and the email went into the ether. I did not hear back. My first priority would be having that listening tour with the president, Barima, and the university president to talk about further investing in our legal clinic here on campus. Hire them as full-time employees that we can retain when we need legal representation with our housing, especially with our housing, but with all of the other things that happen. And then I think to address the second question, I hope I haven't demonstrated that I'm shy. I have no problem asking for the microphone for rebuttal. I currently am the president of the GEO. We have a little bit more gender diversity in terms of male, female, gender queer on our panel, on our e-board, but I do make sure that my voice is heard. And to speak to women's issues specifically, this is something that's come up with the GSO. There is an option for daycare stipends for not just women, but for families who are teaching on campus, who have other responsibilities. And the GSO has historically set aside money for those daycare stipends. But I believe Liz, the current treasurer, was really fighting for that, and she could not get enough graduate students to sign off on that. So I think that didn't pass this year. Do you know if she ended up getting the money? I think she did not. Sorry, there's a daycare stipend, and we can talk about that later. Very important.
There's a daycare stipend this year. Yes. The school funds the graduate students who have kids, we give them $200, and that you could use for your daycare. So I'll clarify. Okay.
So the daycare stipend, I believe it's $200 per semester. It was also $200 per semester last year, but the forms were going into the ether. So one thing that I talked to our treasurer about when she came in is like, let's make sure that we actually receive all of these forms and they get processed. So now they're being received, they're being processed this year, and the budget, she's actually mentioned to me that she wants to increase, yes, that's Liz Young. Liz Young, the treasurer, she's actually mentioned to me that she wants to increase that. So that's something the budget committee is looking at this year, increasing that amount.
Beautiful. You've stolen all my talking points. No, it's fine. I would love to address this further. I'll address my first question, my high priority question. That would be the advertising committee. I think at the beginning of the semester, when tensions are high and when all students are young and fresh and we've got tans or extra work from the summer, we are fresh and we are ready to approach the GSO with fresh eyes and with a fresh mind. And I think that is the perfect time for an advertising committee, a public relations committee, to come together and to start spreading the GSO around to ensure that committees are being chartered, or sub-organizations are being chartered, committees are being created for every single graduate student. Every fall, we have a new chance to have new eyes in the GSO. We have a chance to have new voices in the GSO. And I think the first thing we should be prioritizing is at graduate orientation, emphasizing our voice on campus and making sure that all graduate students are aware of our presence. And then graduates who are unable to attend the orientation, that we're also reaching them and we're making sure that they understand that they have a voice. So that's where our work starts, and then we continue on. But that's our first step. And then for the representation question, it's a very interesting question because Ted and I have actually talked about switching positions, and I think that there's vital importance when it comes to experience and when it comes to constituent relations. And I think that I'm perfectly poised to take on the responsibility of the committees underneath the vice president's office and also be a voice for constituents underneath the president and understand that there are different dynamics within every e-board. And I think that I'm perfectly poised within the vice president's position, and I'm proud to stand among these women right now. Are debating for vice presidency, and I think that gender norms are absolutely relevant that we should be talking about, but I'm not afraid to point something out. I'm not afraid to stare someone in the eye. And then on the child care fund, it's currently at a $200 max per family, and I think that needs to be increased. If this is something that someone is petitioning for, someone's already asking for that child care money, we should be expanding that to meet the needs of all of their children.
Thank you for your questions. I'd say, as vice president, my first priority would be that roundtable that I mentioned, because from those connections and from that opportunity for more of a dialogue, we could expand and do so much more and be so much more effective on the GSO. So it basically is a foundation for the, not that they're less of a priority to me, but they could come secondary to that, and I could be more informed and, better respond to those if I had the opportunity to really have a one-on-one conversation with the representatives from all of those schools. So that would be my first priority. And to the second question, I think it's a great question, and it's, such a essential concern and something that, needs to be spoken on. And I agree. Most of the presidential candidates are men, while the VP candidates are all women. But the fact that we are a team this year actually just puts us in even better of a position to really, speak up for not only our schools, but also our gender, and ensure that the president is hearing us out and is seeing our perspective on issues that are more of his responsibility than ours. So if anything, this year, having us be on the same team is just going to enrich women more, especially with so many grad students, being STEM majors, and, the type of maybe microaggressions or, what you mentioned before that women face in these spaces. We have a particular responsibility to be aware of that. And I think that we could really benefit from maybe on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee having some sort of, it can be something that we could definitely look at and ensure that, if women are, facing these things in the workplace or in their classrooms, they have someone that they can go to and who will look at those complaints and address them and bring them to the larger Senate meetings.
Okay, so one of the high priorities I'm thinking is still about that funding and how we can solve the issue about who can have it and how we prioritize that. Like, I think just a lot of conversation around it about like the different ideas that were mentioned or previously from the other candidates. So that's what a main priority I would consider. And then for like representation, I think just sharing that knowledge and then advocating for like more money for the child healthcare, the child care, stuff like that, or even connecting with other groups to start events and just bringing out that knowledge to let people know that these exist, these programs and such as.
Thank you. Debbie.
Thank you, everyone. I mean, it's great listening to you guys. I mean, sorry, not you guys, to you ladies talking, but I think you all have given like great points. And I'm sure like your president, you guys are going to keep them on their toes. Any of those guys who win or the lady who win, you ladies are going to keep them on their toes because you have brilliant ideas. All of you, you've spoken of brilliant ideas. I love them. Quickly, I just want to make a comment for senators, right? I think the last administration, we had a get-together towards the end of the academic year to appreciate all committees and senators, but I'm not sure everyone attended. It's some.
Day. I don't know if it was specific to senators and committees.
I don't. Maybe I'm not sure of the whole details anymore, but I think last e-board we did something like that, you know. So we could do something this year. Maybe the e-board could do something like bring all the committee members and the senators together. Let's just have a get together, you know, just chat and appreciate them for a job well done for the year. That could be something to do, you know. It's just something that came to mind. But yeah, back to you, VP, and maybe the president could also think about this. While you were talking, I was thinking about something. You guys talked about I think it was Jordan. You were talking about delegating and all of that. And I think from other people, I also grabbed something. There is a problem connecting with a student. And I was thinking of the current structure of power right now, you know. It is from GSO to departmental organizations or sociocultural organizations. But there is still one structure that we're missing, which is the college level. And I'm thinking, like, should we divulge power, you know? Right now, I don't think we have student organization at the college level. Should that be something we should be considering rather than, you know, from GSO to the departmental level? What if we have a middleman? Would that make it easier to disseminate information, to communicate information? You know, I see the disadvantages also too.
You say middleman. You mean
like let's have a student organization at Watson. Say Watson Student Organization, you know, Harper's Student Organization, that middleman between GSO and the department itself. Maybe it's going to be easier. I see the disadvantages also too, because it makes GSO farther away from the actual student also. That's something you guys can think about. It's just an idea, you know, if you have a thought you could share, not necessarily a question, but something that came to mind. Haley, I have a specific question for you. I think you mentioned that you are going to be the president of SNFA. So I'm thinking, how do you I know she asked the question similar to that. How do you intend to combine both of them, you know, together, like being president of SNFA, that will be the Pharmaceutical Student Association, and running GSO at the same time, you know? I know Jordan also talked about being on several committees, you know. It's very important when you go to GSO, we want you to give your all to GSO, you know. That's something very important. I just wanted to hear from you, Haley, on that. And last question is that, okay, two questions. One, if a student come to you today and ask you, why should I pay graduate student activity fee? What would your response be? Why should I pay graduate student activity fee? And the truth is, it's going to be on the ballot this year, which means students will get to vote. I'd like to keep it or not. So what would your response be? Lastly, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that GSO has a policy when it comes to funding for sub-organizations to go seek for funding, like whatever money you get, it has to go through GSO. You know, they can't have their own bank account. To me, I think it doesn't make sense, because if you're giving me $912, you know, per semester or for the academic, I don't know, right? And I have an event that I need to spend like $3,000, but whatever money I raise still has to go through GSO. I don't think it makes sense. What do you think about it? Am I right about the policy?
My understanding is that, or what I can tell you is that the GSO is an official organization with a tax number and a bank account. The individual orgs under GSO are not separate organizations. They've never filed to be created. So for them to have their own separate bank account, they would have to create the existence of that organization. As far as us holding on to their money, if they fundraise, the treasurer is supposed to keep track of specifically what they have fundraised, and that is supposed to be available just to them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't agree with the process, but I would like to hear from them. I know we have something like that in the system, but
two questions for all of them and one question for others. Okay, Haley. Good.
So when asked the question, why should I pay the grad student fee? Why should I? Like, there's a lot that goes into the grad student fee, and it should be fully explained on the ballot when students are voting for it. They're not just paying a fee that goes into some abyss that's never to be seen again. It's the sub-organizations and subcommittees and the GSO's responsibility to make sure that that money is seen on the flip side, that to make sure that that money is actualized in a productive manner so that graduate students benefit from that. And that requires increasing information to make sure that graduate students understand what they can and cannot ask for fundraising for on the individual level, on an organizational level, and that needs to be clearly explained so that graduate students actually benefit from the money they're putting into the grad student organization right now. Because if we're asking grad students to put their blind faith in us, we need to make sure that that is returned. We're asking them to give us money and with the expectation that that is returned, and we need to have an actualized report on what that's going to do, not only for the services that the graduate student fee is going to provide, but also for graduate student life in general. So if we are expecting students to pay into the graduate student organization, we should be making sure that we are doing everything in our power to make sure that that money is seen on the other side, and not just for the GSO and the GSO subcommittees, but for every single student who's paying into the grad student fee, not just those who are actively engaged with GSO and sub-org problems, which comes up in a question of how do we increase engagement. So that's just something to fully actualize at a later time. And then for the funneling money question, I understand the apprehension for sending money into the graduate student organization, but I do respect what the graduate student organization has right now in ensuring that there's a proper legal tax code behind what's happening. I think that there needs to be transparency between the budgeting committee and the organization to ensure that that money is returned on the end.
So just to answer your SNAFA question, I'm actually the president-elect right now of SNAFA, which essentially means that I've been, practicing running the meetings, following behind the current president and learning the processes of the org and how we do things. So I'm very much involved in it at the moment. And I'm confident that I'd be able to balance it alongside being VP. It's also quite a large e-board. I have a lot of people that I can delegate to. At the moment, we have about maybe every 2 weeks we have a meeting. We delegate everything that needs to be done. We have reports of what people have been doing so far, and then we wrap it up. And essentially, my main sole responsibility as the president would be reporting back to the national organization and just keeping up with everybody and making sure that they're getting things done. So as far as the time constraints around that, I'm confident that I'd be able to balance it. Thank you for that question. As for the student activity fee, it is coming up soon, and it's going to be returned to the grad students for them to decide if they want to continue paying it or not. And I think that that should really light a fire under us and motivate us to really get everyone more involved and ensure that all of these sub-organizations and all of the schools are aware of the opportunities and the resources that we have for them, and make sure that what the graduate students are paying into automatically is being returned to them through their specific colleges and the organizations within their colleges. I can say for pharmacy, we have a lot of very active organizations, and none of them are chartered through the GSO. So we need to be more active within each college, letting them know this is how you get chartered, this is how you get funding, and this is what it can do for you and your students. And I think that that vote coming up and the curiosity of the graduate students should really motivate us in that regard. And as for the last question, my opinion on the funding for the sub-orgs, I actually had to disagree. I think that it would place a lot more responsibility on e-boards that, we're not really sure what's going on behind the scenes. Like Mariam said earlier, sometimes e-boards come around that aren't the best, and sometimes they could really screw it over for future e-boards. So I think the safest hands are actually our own within the GSO and allowing our treasurer to manage those funds. But also, I believe there is a treasurer training for chartered orgs, is there not? So those treasurers within the sub-orgs should, be confident in giving that money to the treasurer and the processes that are necessary to access those funds and save them for a later date. So that would be my response to that one. Thank you, Demi.
What about paying the activity fee? To convince them, I guess, more to pay for it, I would show more information like how we're using that fee, the money for it, and how are we making events and creating events for them to maybe network or have some career development and show that information. I think they would understand better where it's going towards instead of just seeing it blindly and not understanding what's happening with that money. So I think that's a good way to show it. And then for like seeking funds, so if they raise their own money and then asking to keep it, I do still agree, like still going through the GSO just to check on it, and then the legal taxes or things that have to happen, and to see how they might use the money, then like give it to the org that raised that money. So that's how I would go through that process to make sure the money is not being wasted or is not used in unnecessary events that won't help the org support other graduate students.
Okay. You said like 5 things, and I feel like I could talk to you all night about these things. So I'm going to just really quick try and hit all of them. Student fee money. I think everyone really covered this. Like, I think it's an issue of us being educated so that we can educate. This is my hot take, but student fee money is the best funding stream at the institutional level because it only dries up if we are not having students come to the university. And like so far, Binghamton's actually been, pretty fortunate compared to a lot of other smaller colleges, around the upstate New York area and otherwise. And so it's talking about that. Like this fee money is something that we control. It's based on how many of us are engaged, and it's really paying ourselves back. In regards to the college level idea that you have, I really do like that. I think it's just more of like a 3-year or a 5-year plan, maybe not something that can be adequately discussed and implemented in just 1 year. And so maybe this is something we should be bringing up next election. Like, did we get further ahead? Are we at a point where we could be talking about introducing other like sub levels that are much larger but functioning in the same way? And I think that's probably the same for the ideas of having our own bank accounts, although I tend to lean a little bit more on the side of caution, just having worked with students and their orgs at Penn State for many years. Bank accounts get really messy, tax exempt issues get really messy, everything gets really messy. But I don't think it's impossible. Certainly not if we had a college level affiliation. And then lastly, I just really want to pitch this idea of senator engagement, of senator appreciation, and Barima's award dinner that he mentioned. I've done that event 4 years in a row for Penn State, and it's awesome. It's really empowering. It really is something that everyone can look forward to, where we celebrate our collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last question. Very brief.
Firstly, I would like to appreciate all the great ideas that you have mentioned. I'm glad that we are recording it so that the current e-board could take constructive feedbacks from it and work on it. My question is more about how you could support the current student workers. Let me give you a perspective while answering. So, if you understand, many graduate students like a GATA, they wanted to do research, but because there are less funding available, they are pushed to do GATA work and also working on research. So it's not a willingness to do it, it's a lot of work pushing out. That's one perspective. Second perspective is, if you consider like a dining worker students, I personally worked on dining when I came, and the students are not treated well, and there is no policy on hand where students can go and feel empowered, sort of. And then we have the administration who is pushing PhD students to graduate, but to be honest, there is not a good job market out there. So there is a gap between the administration and the students, which needs to be understood by the VP and make a policy which could which could empower the students and make sure that they feel advocate. So if you think you don't have power for it, the president has many he's a representative in many positions, and he could give you a right to be in those positions, and you could be one of the voting right members and make your point during the administration meeting. So how could you bring a policy so that the student or the student workers feel empowerment?
Okay. I want to also add a question, and this is personal question. It's so dear to my heart. It just came to mind. Somebody who has been with the e-board for almost 1 year now, I noticed that e-board members kind of carry their own activities without involving members, or members within the e-board doesn't involve in activities. And you can see clearly our e-board members, we are only 2. Yesterday, the same thing. So as VPs, what kind of recommendation will you give to your president or even members to encourage e-board members to involve in activities? Thank you.
To address your question, Prabhu, the VP is actually really well positioned to empower student workers because we are the head of the Employment and Labor Committee. And that means that we can work closely with the union. I believe they're like an ex officio member on the committee, but we would be we would be, as the VP, the most responsible and the first liaison to these student workers. So I feel like I'm not a student worker. I don't know the issues that they face and their specific needs, but I can attest that as the VP, they're going to be one of my top priorities because I'm the leader of the committee that's supposed to represent them. So I'm going to ensure that that committee is having strong outreach with them and, addressing the issues periodically throughout each semester to ensure that their needs are met. Actually, Akshay and I had one of our campaign initiatives, which was to bring late night buses for these student workers because they get off of work super late after being in dining hall or wherever they are. And then they're either forced to get a ride share or maybe carpool, or they have to take, the local bus rather than a Binghamton bus, which, as we know, isn't always the best experience, especially late at night. It's borderline dangerous, I'd say, in some situations. So that's a really big ticket for us and a priority that we're going to address. But I can, assure you that even if we're not fully familiar with the issues that they're going to bring to us yet, that we're, going to be open to them and, willing to address it. And Yakub, as for your question, I'm sorry, I kind of forgot your question.
Board member.
Oh, yes. I think that we have Sweet M emailing, and she's like, "Hey guys, if you want to come, you should come." And no, you have to come. This is your responsibility, and you have, you are part of the e-board. You're part of this organization, and you have to have some personal responsibility to the events that we hold. So I think maybe having a little bit of a stronger fist about, them coming to things.
Okay. So about the student workers, yeah, since we're the VP would be working with the student workers very directly, I think collecting a lot of data to show that there's unfair work conditions, especially with the dining hall, and then speaking to them administrative about these issues and seeing if we can make a compromise or create a new policy that can really help these types of students that are working. So I think that's a big thing to converse about that, and is there a middle ground that we can do for those student workers. And then for having more e-board members participate in events, we could do something maybe more like the incentivizing type of thing where you have to mandatorily go to 2 events to hold your position or something like that, where you can bring more of them, because we want to show that we are as one team. We're collecting together and we have the same goals in mind. So that should be a super high priority to go to SGO events that we host.
Okay, Sorry, I know it's so late. I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. First thing, we can help the student workers unionize. If they do not fall under the purview of the union, we need to help them do that. And we have the resources to do that. Second, no matter what happens and who gets elected, we absolutely need to make that late night bus availability a priority, regardless of who gets the bid. Like, that needs to happen because that's a safety issue and that's really important. And finally, we talked about we're asking about how do we encourage good leadership. I just want to share the words that one of my mentors in undergrad shared with me that I try to live by, and that is the best leaders are actually servants. So if we can collectively keep that in mind, we will have a more effective GSO board.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a student worker myself, there have been times in which I've held 4 jobs on campus at once, and it's overwhelming and it's terrifying. But the alternative is not being able to pay for food or not being able to pay for textbooks that are ridiculously expensive, and we have no resources to support students in that capacity. There are some university-wide resources, but we as a GSO need to be representing our constituents in more powerful ways, and we start that by supporting the workers' union, and that is the most important thing we could prioritize when it comes to the LNE, and that is supporting the union and making sure that the GSEU has the resources and materials to properly represent graduate workers and ensure that they are not forced to work and they have alternatives. And if they do need to work, making sure they're working in safe conditions and making sure they have equitable access to resources outside of their work environment. And then to talk about the e-board involvement, we also need to talk about what a privilege it is to be here for the past 4 hours almost, and that's a lot of time commitment. And I think we need to be prioritizing timing, access, and support. So making sure that the timing of e-board events or any GSO event is in line with the calendars of their constituents. If we're hosting events during the day, as the e-board, if we're hosting events, as the GSO, if we're hosting events, even subcommittees, if we're hosting events in the middle of the day when we know that some of our graduate students are in class, then we're not fully representing all of our graduate students. We need to be mindful of graduate students who are in class, graduate students who have other work commitments during that time, and making sure there's equitable access to these events outside of the traditional working hours. So that way they have access to that too. And then making sure that they are supported, making sure that meetings are available on Zoom. By supporting a meeting on Zoom, it incredibly increases the amount of people who are able to attend these events, who are able to engage and participate. So making sure that there's proper timing, access, and support.
But do we still have questions online? Thank you so much. This was a long day. On this note, on behalf of the e-board, I would like to thank everybody for attending, whether in person or via Zoom. You should be expecting the results on Monday. It should come as a newsletter. So please watch out. And then you can continue with your, what do you call it? Your campaigns.